Hello, everyone, and welcome to ReelTok episode 57. Today marks week 2 of our October month of horror podcasts. In this episode, we're going to be talking about 2010s horror, aka or 2010s through 2020s, aka modern horror films. We obviously have the big up-and-comers like Peele, Aster, and Eggers. I feel like at this point, they're not really up-and-comers, but each of them have 3 films each, so they're still early in their careers. We're going to be reviewing The Witch as our episode review this week, because the only new release this week that I'm aware of was The Exorcist Believer. None of us saw that one. And if any of you have seen any reviews, seen it tomorrow. But if any of you have seen early reviews, whether it's from Rotten Tomatoes or whether it's from your favorite movie creator on Letterboxd or TikTok, it doesn't seem like anyone's being positive about this one. So,
as expected
from that trailer. I don't think any of us expected anything, not only from the trailer, but just trying to reboot the Exorcist franchise in general, which we also will be touching on today in general in terms of modern horror, of all these horror franchises that are getting rebooted and remade. We'll be talking some Julia Ducournau and Brandon Cronenberg for some body horror for modern films. And we'll also be doing our ranking of the top 10 horror movies since 2010. So 2010 included, so just our top 10 modern horrors, basically. So yeah, packed episode for week two of this month of horror. Let's just jump right into it. We're going to go ahead and start with how have we been doing this week? So I'm going to kick it over to George. George, how's the week been?
It's been good. Continuing on with the film festival. So that's really been all I've been doing. Work, film festival, come home, sleep, wake up, work, film festival, blah, blah, blah. But it's been good. Checked off a couple of great movies at the film festival this week. Had some fun fan interactions that I texted you guys about. Other than that, pretty standard week. Nothing crazy. Lighter week on the work side. And just wrapping up week 1 of the film festival. Halfway through.
Nice. Seth, how about you? How's your week been? I know this weekend you might be busy because we're actually recording this on a Friday, FYI, for anyone listening. Yeah. So it's not crack of dawn for the morning for us.
So busy this week. So this week's kind of just been preparing for next week, I guess. Tomorrow I'm heading up to down to London in the morning. Then I've got the Scorsese talk, which I'm very, very excited for. Like, just to even be in the same room as Scorsese, do you know what I mean? It's like one of those it's like a bucket list thing, I guess. And I'm there until Wednesday. I've got about 5 or 6 films. I'm doing another shoot with Lad Bible. Actually, I'm doing another shoot with them on Wednesday, so I've got that to look forward to, and just a whole bunch of shit. In terms of this week, pretty standard. Not really done too much, just work-wise. I had to buy loads of stuff ready for this week. Going to see The Exorcist Believer tomorrow, which...
Why?
Well, because I'm going to a Blumhouse event in London, which is it's like a Blumhouse pop-up event. Okay. I'm going for that because that looks really cool. And there's some Five Nights at Freddy's sort of shit, but it comes with a screener of Exorcist Believer. I'm not looking forward to that at all. But yeah, pretty good week, pretty standard. Nothing too much. Just ready for this week coming, really.
Yeah, nothing crazy on my end for the week. Pretty standard week in general. Haven't been watching a whole ton of movies, but I guess we'll just transition right into that. What have you been watching this week? So, Seth, what have you been ticking off your watch list this week?
So I watched a few things this week. I would say I watched The Witch, which will be a review on this episode, actually. 28 days later, which is obviously our Patreon review. Both rewatches for me. So this is an interesting one. I watched a film called The Outwaters, which I don't know if you guys have seen. It's a very polarizing found footage film from this year. Its graph is like mental. It's like you think Skinamarink polarizing, like it's worse. I think.
What's it called?
The Outwaters. It's only 10 people have seen it who I follow. It's very.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Have you seen the graph? Yeah, it's crazy.
That's
like, yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like it's good at points, but you think like Skinamarink, I didn't hate. I mean, I didn't like it. I give it a 2 star, same as this one. But that was like an hour 40, and it felt like a lot longer. This is exactly the same as that, where it's like nearly 2 hours long, and it felt like they could have put it into like a 20-minute short film. So that was a bit, yeah. It's one of them, though. I can see why people love it. There are some really good scenes. If you're a found footage fan, you might like it. I watched Possession, which didn't love, to be honest with you. I had a few messages about that. I thought it was just okay. I watched Titan again, rewatch, up to a 5 star now because I fucking love that film. I also watched Halloween 2, which I actually liked. I can't lie, the Rob Zombie one. And it's funny as well because I was speaking to someone like this the other day. So Rob Zombie, I've seen like 7 of his films. This is the first one I've rated positively. I don't like his films at all. It's not my sort of film. But I liked his kind of like dark surrealist take on it. I thought it was a really interesting way to go in terms of exploring, the PTSD around the characters.
Wait, Rob Zombie didn't do Halloween 2?
Yeah, he did.
Letterboxd says Rick Rosenthal.
No, you're looking at Halloween 2 as in the original Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Because he did the reboots.
Halloween 2, right. Fuck.
And they're like really polarizing. Like, it's one of those, like the graphs are all over the place. I thought it was cool. Like, it's an interesting take on it. And then I also ticked off the Wes Anderson shorts as well. My favorite definitely being the Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Yeah. I think it was really. I think they were all good. I wasn't huge on the Swan actually, which I know a lot of people were. I wasn't huge on that one, but I think I just like the cast, man. I need Dev Patel to be in more Wes Anderson projects. He was so good.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to see because I know in my last review I ranked. Yeah, the Swan is my least favorite of the shorts. So
I posted like my ranking yesterday, and people were like, "Oh, the Swan was actually easily my favorite one," which I get, but for me, it didn't really do too much for me in terms of the storytelling narrative. But I will say it's probably the darkest Wes Anderson's ever gone when it comes to themes of a film. So I guess
are all 4 of these related? Like no, right?
No, not at all.
Well, they're related in terms of their Roald Dahl short stories.
Okay,
they're
not
not connected
related
universes.
themes.
Yeah. Okay. I still
have you not seen them, George?
No.
Oh shit! The first one's like 40 minutes, so it's like nearing up a feature film with Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar. That's really good. I think that's some of his best work ever. Like it's really, really good. Really good.
Yeah, I need to catch up because I think the first one dropped on the film festival day 1, so I didn't watch it then, and then I didn't realize they were dropping back-to-back days. Yeah. So then, like next thing I know, I'm like 3 short films behind. And I'm like, shit, I really got to sit myself.
Well, the other 3 are like less than 20 minutes. They're like 17 minutes or some shit.
Oh,
okay. Really short.
All right, I can do that. That's easy.
George, what have you been watching this week?
Film festival mostly, and then a couple of rewatches. So, film festival wise, I got to watch Poor Things. I really liked it. Yeah, really liked it. Can very
I saw
much
you dropped it from a 4.5 to 4.
I did. A lot of people question that. I also dropped May December from a 4 to a 3.5. I dropped All of Us Strangers from a 4 to a 3.5. I think I got caught up in like the recency bias of the festival and just like being there. So like the more I was thinking about these movies, the more I was kind of like, yeah, I like Poor Things, but maybe it's not like a 4.5. Like I was also comparing it to other releases this year, particularly like Suzume and John Wick 4. And in my head, I'm like, I'd much rather like watch Suzume or John Wick 4 compared to Poor Things, which isn't a knock to Poor Things. It's more of like a credit to Suzume and John Wick 4. Still really like Poor Things. I can absolutely understand why it is being talked about like right next to Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon as being like the best picture frontrunners. It's just like it's a technical marvel. Touches on a lot of themes of, identity, sexual liberation, obedience. Seth, I would not be surprised if Poor Things ends up being your number 1 of the year, honestly.
Well, it's like a monster movie, isn't it? It's like a modern day.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. The Boy and the Heron I watched. I slightly disappointed, I will say, but like I texted you guys, Miyazaki is the only filmmaker out there who can make a 3.5 out of 5-star film, and I'll say it's disappointing. That's just a testament to how good of a filmography
I have like
he
3.5 for him.
Yeah, he's a goat, no doubt. All of Us Strangers, another just really a movie just packed with a ton of emotion. Paul Mescal, I wrote in my Letterboxd review, the Paul Mescal is a vulnerable, lonely, sad man. Cinematic universe continues to expand because that's exactly what this movie is. And then Maestro. A little disappointed, but
I'm seeing that.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed, especially because a lot of the early reviews that were coming out were like, masterpiece, best biopic since The Social Network, blah blah blah. Still a 3.5 out of 5 for me. I really liked what Bradley Cooper did with the story. I just think he focused a little too much on Leonard Bernstein's relationship with his wife as opposed to Leonard Bernstein's relationship with music, and I think that's what held the movie back for me. Richard Linklater's Hitman, loved it. Loved it. In my top 5 of the year, I fucking adored it. I was laughing the entire time. I hate that this is dropping on Netflix because I think a theater experience for this one will elevate a lot of people's.
Oh yeah, Netflix bought it, didn't they?
Yeah. This was just fantastic. I have Glenn Powell, my number 2, in my best actor race, right behind Cillian Murphy. And then just last night, Evil Does Not Exist, and that kind of rounds out the film festival. Rewatched The Batman, finally raised Deathly Hallows Part 2 to a 5-star. It was just time. I was always hesitant on that, but I just love that movie too much. But yeah, that's about it. That's what I've been watching.
George, is that your longest review ever?
Which one? The Hitman? Definitely.
Yeah.
It
might be,
I think so. I
bro went off on that.
Once that movie ended, I opened up Letterboxd and just started typing away like crazy.
Yeah,
I had so many thoughts in my head, and I didn't want any of them to like get lost back there, you know? So the second the credits started rolling, I was typing away. The Richard Linklater came out for a Q&A, which is really cool. So I kept looking at him, looking at Letterboxd, looking at him, looking at Letterboxd, and I just kept just typing whatever was in my head. So I even said in my Letterboxd review, my downfall of Letterboxd is writing reviews once the credit rolls. I open Letterboxd immediately. I never take time to think. It's just immediate. Whatever's in my head is going on Letterboxd. I don't treat it as a movie review. I treat it as a diary. You know, so it's it makes sense to me. So I apologize if it sounds, stupid to you or if it's grammatically incorrect.
But it's interesting to hear about Maestro because I feel like Bradley Cooper in general has a massive cult following fan base because I think everyone kind of agrees A Star Is Born remake was really good for him, but there's a lot of people who consider it to be incredible, 10 out of 10, snubbed from every Oscar. There's a lot of people that are obsessed with Bradley Cooper as a director, obviously as an actor as well, which I think everyone kind of agrees he's quite good at. But I don't know. We'll see what our.
I'm not very excited for it, to be honest.
I'm not either, honestly.
I'm curious to see.
I only booked it because it was available, and I was like, "Oh, I may as well." I think I'm seeing it on.
It's worth the watch. Tuesday? It's absolutely.
Have you seen Priscilla as well, George?
No. So I was supposed to go see Foe tonight. But Sophie texted me saying that someone gave her a ticket to see Priscilla. So she's going to see Priscilla. I am not.
I'm looking forward to that now. When that trailer dropped the other day, and I was like, okay, this looks.
Yeah, I'm still not. Yeah, I'm still not there on Priscilla. I think it looks good, but I'm not giddy about it the way other people are. But for Maestro, I'm curious to see. Again, it's a good movie. I think you guys are going to enjoy the movie. But I'm curious to see what you think of Bradley Cooper as an actor after this movie, because I think he's incredible. But there are moments where it just feels like he wants that Oscar. He's just it's a little too performative. It's a little too Oscar baity. And Seth, I know that's how you describe Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor. I think this Bradley Cooper and
no.
Shut the fuck up.
No, sorry.
You say he's performative. I could find you our podcast episode where you said that.
True, but in a different no. Because not in a performative way where it's an Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything. That's what I'm getting at with it. That's an Oscar bait performance.
Yes.
Leo's different class. He's
okay. That is a much better, I think, comparison. Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything, where it's it's a very, very good performance. No one's taking anything away from it, but it does feel Bradley Cooper wrote this performance thinking he's going to win an Oscar immediately.
Yeah.
I think he's in the case of Maestro, I think he is much better behind. I think people are going to talk about his directing way more than his acting. Whereas in A Star Is Born, I feel the discourse was split 50-50 because he did such a good job at both. And
Is it boring?
A Star Is Born?
No,
No. No, I wouldn't say it's boring. I was definitely intrigued the entire time. Again, it's a personal thing for me. I personally was just a little upset that they focused more on Leonard Bernstein's love life as opposed to his musical life. Imagine if Oppenheimer was about Oppenheimer's relationship to his wife, and the atomic bomb stuff was in the background. It wasn't the forefront of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. Like it's a great movie. It's a great love story. Like my 3.5 is a good score. But I think I just went in with different expectations on what type of biopic I was expecting.
Is Carrie Mulligan as good as everyone says she is?
She's my best actress pick right now.
Oh wow!
She
Who was
was
prior? Who was prior?
It was Emma Stone. It was Emma Stone, and in my Poor Things review, I literally wrote Emma Stone is picking up her second Academy Award for Best Actress, and then like a day later, I saw Maestro, and I was like, "Shit, Carrie Mulligan's number one now."
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that.
A lot of people are saying Lily Gladstone's going to get it because she's running in Best.
I know, yeah.
But it'll be interesting because when Killers
it's a good race. That's a great Best Actress race.
It'll be really fun to watch how it plays out. But when Killers of the Flower Moon debuted at what was it, Cannes? Was that where it was like initial?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
the reviews weren't like overwhelmingly positive. They were positive, but like for a Scorsese flick, like no one was saying it's like his best or anywhere near his best. So I'm like kind of interested that how everyone seems so confident Lily Gladstone's taking it. So we'll see how her performance is because it is such a stacked cast. But you mentioned how like in a lot of your film scores have been dropping for the film festival. I totally feel that for Sundance. I've lowered probably like every single review from that because it's like so easy to get caught up in the film festival atmosphere.
Exactly. Like a movie starts rolling, everyone stands up and claps immediately. Then there's like a Q&A with the filmmaker, and it's
I feel like I'll do the same.
Yeah, like because I'm a part of this experience, like I don't know if it's just like I felt obligated to give it like maybe a higher score than initially, but yeah, I've lowered 3 movies so far.
What was the other one?
May, December, All of Us Strangers, and Poor Things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know All of Us Strangers. What did you give that? I didn't actually see.
3.5.
4? 3.5? Okay.
3.5. Yeah. So I have Hitman is my only 4.5. I fucking love that movie. Poor Things is my only 4. And then everything else is a 3.5. Evil Does Not Exist, All of Us Strangers, The Boy and the Heron, Maestro, and May, December.
Nice.
And speaking of Best Actress, Natalie Portman's name might be in there as well. So that's another stacked addition to that Best Actress lineup.
Yeah, the pretty much the only Sundance movie I didn't drop is called Fair Play, and it's actually releasing on Netflix today. So I'll be interested to rewatch it because I obviously haven't seen it since like January.
Is that the one with Han Solo?
Yeah, Alden Ehrenreich, Phoebe Dynevor, directed by Claire Dumont. I love that movie. It's a thriller that's kind of like a financial thriller, but mostly about their relationship with each other because they're in a relationship together and things start. They work at the same workplace and things get competitive between the two when it comes to work versus a relationship. And I really loved it. So I'm going to rewatch it because that's one of my favorites of the year, but obviously I haven't seen it in like 9 months at this point. So I'm going to be interested to see how much holds up. Also like interested if anything gets like cut or added, but at this point, I don't even know if I'd really remember that much, honestly, from 9 months ago. But yeah, so for me, I haven't been watching much this week. I've been kind of binging a lot of Love Island UK.
No, what are you doing?
You watched that show too, don't lie. You watched the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, in 2014, 15, when I was like 16 years. I spoke to obviously Kevin who came on.
I text him all the time about the show. Yeah,
of course you do. And I always make fun of him for watching it as well. Like I watched the first couple of seasons were like real people in Love Island, actual genuine people,
right?
Real human beings, and then it was all right. And then I watched like I think it was season 4, maybe it was like 2019. I was like, oh, I just hate it. I can't. The people annoy me so much. And also, I will say this as well. A lot of the Love Island people are at a lot of the events in London. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. They're some of the biggest influencers in that country.
They just think they're like,
say what's on your mind, Seth. Say what's on your mind.
I don't know, man. They just. I just still feel like they think they're like celebrities. It's funny, but is what it is.
I mean, they're like based on their social media reach. They definitely like could be.
I don't. Not the big ones. Yeah, like obviously like the the higher tier, but like the the ones who just go on for like a what's it called Casa Amor or something.
Yeah, and are on for like an episode or two and then are off.
And then they're often doing like brand deals stuff. It's like I don't know. I haven't watched it in years. Maybe it's better now. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just like
watch the earlier ones.
I will. It's just such good second screen television. Like I've never ever sat down once to like sit in front of my TV and watch Love Island. It's like always like when it's like you can see behind me, like I have my iPad sitting right there and my work monitors. It's always just on my iPad, like while I'm working my day job, because like I don't really want to watch a movie that I'm trying to review while working because like that's just not really fair. I feel like I wouldn't give it a fair review. So it's like I kind of want something going on because my job is just like monotonous. So it's like I'll just put on like Love Island or something easy that I don't need to pay attention to because I've never actually like, given it my full attention, which Kevin says that I should be, but I don't.
No, you shouldn't.
Don't fall into
yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah. But no, the best season by far for anyone who watches is season 5, the one where Tommy Fury is the one who goes on. Tyson Fury, the boxer's brother, who just beat Jake Paul like a couple months ago in Abu Dhabi in that boxing fight. He was the best season for sure. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of that this week. I also finished watching all the Wes Anderson shorts. My final ranking for them was Henry Sugar, definitely number 1. And then The Rat Catcher was super interesting, like super creative for Wes Anderson, like way different than anything I've kind of experienced, almost like kind of like horror-ish. And then Poison, and then Swan. And it's like Henry Sugar, a gap, Rat Catcher, a gap, then Poison and Swan for me.
Mine's the same as yours, but I'd switch Rat Catcher and Poison. I think I'll Poison second. But I definitely Henry Sugar's like far at the top for me, like a good amount at the top.
That one's really, really, really freaking good. And then I watched A Million Miles Away, which I think Cam watched like a couple weeks ago and is released on Prime Video. I posted a TikTok video like a couple weeks ago about like supporting actors and everything, and I was talking about Michael Pena. And he's so good in this. Like, it's just, I wish he would get more leading roles. He's gotten some in his career, but I feel like most of the time in the more mainstream movies, he's just a side character that's usually comedic relief, or like in American Hustle, he just like is randomly like the Sheik that just comes in for like a minute. But in this, he's clearly like the main character. He's the main guy. He has to put the whole movie on his back, and he gives such like an emotional and dramatic performance. It's what Flaming Hot like wanted to be. I get Flaming Hot was going for like the comedic tones, but Cam made that comparison as well. It's like a guy who wasn't a migrant worker who was basically grew up like in the fields working, and then now he went to space and was an astronaut. So an actual like zero to hero story, whereas Flamin' Hot was just kind of like a lie. But he technically was zero to hero if he went from janitor to VP, but he just kind of lied about how he got there. And then lastly, I rewatched Southpaw. It's been years since I saw it, and I kind of forgot like how much I just found it such an average movie, but like Jake Gyllenhaal like elevates it so much. Rachel McAdams is great as well, but obviously we know she's not in the movie for the longest of times. But Antoine Fuqua, I just think in general is just not that exciting or interesting as a director. Like the story itself was so basic, and almost like the biggest thing I cringed at was like the exposition. Like it would be like, Seth, you watch a lot of UFC, and it's like in the middle of like the boxing fight at the beginning, like they're like while the fight's going on, they're just like, yeah, he was an orphan. He came from nothing.
No, they do that in real life.
Well, I watch
they do it all the time.
Like, when the fight's actually going, I feel like they aren't. They're
so do you know John Anik, like the main, like the head? He's like the main commentator. He's like, none of the other commentators do, but he's like memed for doing like weird shit. Like there was a guy Vital who was once like, well, here we have this guy who's good, and he's having like a custody battle with his wife. Everyone was like, what the fuck? Like, this is not, he does it all the time. I know what you mean. Like and you won't hear a lot of commentators do that. It's mainly like a play-by-play of the fight. You know what I mean? But yeah, I remember in Southpaw, it is very much like that. Yeah. Southpaw is very exposition-heavy, generic sports movie. But I still quite enjoy it, though. I do quite
Me too. And Jake Gyllenhaal is a big reason. But I forgot, too, because obviously like the big thing that happens at the beginning is super sad. And everyone remembers it who's seen it. But I forgot like how it just it doesn't get like happier. Like I think really. the one thing that they threw in, like just skip forward 15 seconds. You don't want to be spoiled for Southpaw movie that came out like 10 years ago. Like the boxing gym he goes to, like, and there's like that kid who's training there, and then that kid just gets like shot and killed and dies. I was like, I feel like that's such an unnecessary thing to add.
Yeah.
There's just like this random kid he started to become a friend with who just gets like shot and killed. I was like, are they just trying to make this like almost trauma porn at some point where like, everything that happened to him was just sad. And then his like daughter's like, I wish you died instead of mom. I'm like, is there ever a happy moment in this movie? Jesus. And that was like with 10 minutes left. I'm like, when's the happiness come?
Did you guys watch his film that he came up with last year? That one with Will Smith? I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, very average.
Which one? I actually,
no,
that's the one. Yeah, I can't think of a film he's done which I've really liked other than Training Day.
The Guilty.
But yeah, like in general.
No. Oh yeah, Cam's not here, is he?
No.
Back on the Guilty. Shit.
Guilty's a good movie.
But still,
the original Guilty is a good movie.
No, all-time twist in the JKG movie. All-time twist.
It's a remake.
Doesn't matter. They did it better.
Fuck off. The original's good.
All-timer right there. Top 10 movie where the whole movie takes place in one room.
No.
Speaking of commentators though in fighting sports, I just saw like onto my TikTok for you page like a clip from back when it was like McGregor versus Aldo and it was Joe Rogan's commentary. That was
I
like an
just watched
all-time call because like he was like right when the fight starts, Rogan's like, man, McGregor looks loose and Aldo looks scared. And then he just gets knocked out. And then I'm like, damn, Rogan he just copped that right there. He just got it.
Rogan's fallen off so much, man.
Has
He
he
just,
really?
Well, he doesn't do much UFC.
He
'cause,
doesn't
like, why would
watch
he?
UFC. He doesn't know who the fighters are. Like he'll be like commentating now because everyone loves Joe Rogan because he's like the name. I mean, I don't, but you know what I mean. He's like the UFC was there since the start. But he commentates and stuff now, and he has the same 3 lines he just spouts every fight. He never goes to the shows outside of the US anymore. He doesn't know any of the lowdown fighters. He just like, because like with this fucking podcast and stuff, he's got so much going on. I don't think he like really cares. Do you know what I mean? That much anymore.
Well, because everyone
He just
always
gives
says
good
too, like
reactions.
they should do a Fear Factor remake and like have like Rogan come back. It's like you'd have to legitimately pay him like 25 mil an episode to come because it's just
Well,
not worth it.
what was his contract with Spotify? It was something crazy, wasn't it? Like
nuts.
Yeah,
crazy.
It was the biggest
hundreds
ever,
and
for
hundreds
sure.
of millions.
Yeah, but beyond that, he still has like ads and sponsors every episode too, which he posts like 4 or 5 a week. So he's
and he
obviously
gets paid for the commentating job so much.
He won't be.
So-
It won't be long till he's officially a billionaire. I bet he like actually is a billionaire, but if you Google it, it's probably like net worth 300 million. But
Yeah,
at this
net worth's
point,
fucking stupid.
yeah, it makes no sense. But yeah, he's got to be, and especially now he lives in Texas where he's not paying taxes on all the money he's making. He's probably just racking up right now.
Wait, is there 0 income tax in Texas?
For state? So like in California, like 20% more of his money was just like taken away in taxes. So he's basically just going to keeping 20% more of his money now. So he's just
I'm going to Texas. Then. Get me there
yes,
now.
there's Texas, Florida, and there's a couple other states that are no income tax. So that's why like a lot of like professional sport, like especially hockey, where hockey players aren't that highly paid compared to other professional sports. Like the Texas and Florida teams, which are normally like not hockey states because no one plays hockey, it's too hot there, but they're like really good teams because all the players want to go there because like I'm gonna keep my money. I don't want to pay taxes on this shit.
I didn't know. Florida was no tax either. Jesus.
Yeah, it's a lot of the southern states for some reason. Like I don't know, but yeah, that's all I've been watching. Looking for. Well, I actually just started watching the Boston Strangler, the Hulu movie with.
I've seen that.
Keira
Keira
Knightley.
Knightley.
Yeah, so far it just seems like it's a really try hard Zodiac. I only have like
It was
30 minutes left.
meh. It was just meh.
It's just, and so many of the scenes, like there's like a basement scene, and I'm like, man, they're really trying to just copy
Yeah.
Zodiac right now.
Yeah,
and get that same kind of juice. But also, again, freaking David Dastmalchian's in it as like a creepy guy. I'm like, dude, is this? Anytime there's a creepy guy, they're just like, yo, David, come here, man.
It works.
Yeah, he
It
plays a
works.
guy where it's like he's a tailor that measures people's like size around their neck and their legs.
Seams and
But he
stuff,
uses
yeah,
it
yeah.
without a tape measure. He uses his hands. I'm like, he's just a creepy ass dude. How is he always getting these roles? But let's dive in now to talking about The Witch, which is obviously the directorial debut of Robert Eggers, one of the 3 main directors we're kind of going to focus on in this episode. I just watched it for the first time this morning. And then I know you two both rewatched it this week, but
We
obviously
don't know your score.
Yeah, you don't know our score. Well, I did actually post it on
Yeah, I do know your score.
But
You know why did you post it?
this is a podcast episode, not a real quick. And
Okay.
I don't think anyone knows we're reviewing The Witch until this drops. Like this is come out on Monday. And that's
That's
when
true.
people know The Witch.
This is true. This is true.
But yeah, obviously you two have seen it and you rewatched it, so I'm going to start it off with you guys. But I guess I'll give a quick synopsis because might as well. That's kind of what we do here. So let me just pull it up. The Witch in 1630s New England, William and Catherine lead a devout Christian life with 5 children, homesteading on the edge of an impassable wilderness, exiled from their settlement when William defies the local church. When their newborn son vanishes and crops mysteriously fail, the family turns on one another. This came out in 2015, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson, Kate Dickie. Anyone else notable? Not
It's just
really.
the kids, really, isn't it?
Yeah, not really anyone else worth to mention. But Robert Eggers' debut, kind of a turning point for modern horror, especially for A24 horror. Seth, I'm going to start off with you. Kind of overall thoughts, your score on the movie.
Yeah, so I've seen The Witch like a number of times, like many. This is kind of one of the first horror films I loved. I remember this is kind of my introduction to A24 back in the day. It was like, what, 2015, I think? Yeah.
Yep, 2015.
I think The Witch is truly fantastic and kind of set the new standard for not just modern horror, but modern kind of folk horror in an era where there wasn't too much going on with that kind of thing. And I think I mean, from a technical level, it's insanely impressive. I think it's dark. I think it's unrelenting. I think it's scary. And I mentioned this in my review, but it's scary in a context of not just providing an onslaught of jump scares, but slow builds up tension, really relying on the sound design, and the sound design is fucking terrifying in this thing. and this isn't a new take at all, but I mentioned it. I think the best thing about The Witch is everyone has a different interpretation, especially about the ending, which obviously we'll go into. But like, it really is just Anya Taylor-Joy is like a metaphor for women living in a patriarchal society, and like the fear of damnation. I think I said in my review, the fear of going against God, and she kind of represents that and represents the repercussions of that. And then obviously you have the mom, the kids, and the dad who's like in the middle of it all. And I think it's truly a genius script. And in my eyes, it doesn't. I mean, it does get spoken about a lot as a film, but you know, you compare like The Lighthouse. I don't think this is nearly as
Lighthouse
about
gets a
The
lot more
Lighthouse.
buzz than this, I'd say.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think it's truly genius. One of the best horrors of recent time, and it did really set the standard for modern folk horror. And folk horror is something I really, really, really tend to enjoy, and I think it excels in pretty much all areas. In terms of, there's not really much I can say without going into like spoilers. But in terms of my score, I've got it at 4.5. I'll be honest, it could go up to a 5.
I was gonna say that this is maybe a crazy thing to say, Seth, but 4.5 is too low for you. 4.5. I'm more so looking at it from the fact that, like, I think this is like a blend of everything you love about
especially
film.
how much you're getting fired up on religious films. Like,
Yeah,
it's crazy. What is wrong with me? Like,
exactly.
every film is like,
It's a very religious
I know.
film, but it's also a very well executed horror film that isn't relying on jump scares. It's more so relying on, you know, its lore and its thematic elements to like build this like suspenseful energy throughout the film. So between like that and the religion, and then just the beautiful way this movie looks and is shot, I'm honestly shocked that this is not a 5 for you.
And I will say, I think Kate Dickie is such a fantastic actress. I've liked her for ages. I also think as well, I think this could go to a 5, but I want to rewatch The Lighthouse. So it's been about a year since I rewatched The Lighthouse.
Yeah, Lighthouse I've not seen.
I don't know which one I prefer. They're so close to me in terms of Robert Eggers. Like The Northman I really liked, but it's not near it's not
Agreed.
quite to the level of the other two. But the other two are just so like neck and neck. I'm going to rewatch that probably next week, and then I might bump one of them up to a 5. It'll kind of be a test. But yeah, probably one of the most outstanding kind of directorial debut, especially in the horror space, that we've seen in a very, very long time, I'd say.
Yeah, George, how about you?
Yeah, pretty much echo everything Seth said. I love that we're calling this a modern horror movie when it's like this like very you know, older folk type of story. It just feels very odd, like calling something like a Get Out modern horror and then going and calling something like a Witch modern horror, when they're like just two completely opposite spectrum movies. But I love the religious aspects of this movie. I love that, you know, that this father looks at himself as like this Messiah figure, and even like when we're at the dinner table, he's kind of sitting in the corner and he looks like Jesus's Last Supper. And even from like the first shot of the movie where they're being exiled from their village, that's very, you know, Adam and Eve exiled from the Garden of Eden, or I don't know if I'm getting my religion facts incorrect.
Seth is our resident religion expert, is he right?
I think so. I don't know what you
But
I'm pretty sure you are.
But yeah, that's basically what I'm getting at. I think this is just such a fantastic take on religion as a horror, on being so devout and so, you know, consumed by what your faith is and what your belief is, that it kind of turns it completely like folds in a sense where it becomes scary, and you're seeing it from Anya Taylor-Joy's perspective, and we'll get into spoilers, but of course her character kind of is heading down this dark road, and she's kind of being held back by all the men in her life, and slowly, one by one, obviously all the men in her life are getting clipped, until obviously Black Phillip is the last one that remains, who we end
Spoiler.
Okay, well, we're getting spoilers. Fuck off.
Hit this. Hit this.
But yeah, even to the point of, all right, well, I'll hold off on my thoughts on Black Phillip until we get the spoilers. But yeah, I think this is a really effective horror movie. I'm typically not like the most, you know, slow burn lover, I guess, but I think this movie's screenplay and its aspects on religion and Robert Eggers' take on religion and horror and how the two can kind of, coexist is very interesting to look at. And yeah, we'll talk about the ending in a little bit, but yeah, 4.5 out of 5 for me. This is, I think it's only the third time I've watched this film. And just like Seth, I think I am due for a Lighthouse rewatch. I've only seen that one twice and I haven't seen it probably in like a year, maybe 14, 15 months. So maybe that'll be tonight's watch.
Yeah, I'm similar to Seth in terms of The Witch and The Lighthouse. For me are neck and neck. Like they're literally both the same exact score for me, 7.7 out of 10. But The Lighthouse has been a year and a half since I've seen it, and I've only seen it once. So again, due for a rewatch.
Did you watch The Northman?
Yes, Northman is my favorite, but that's just because we have different tastes, and I feel like this is a movie that's clearly more up your guys' alleys than it is for me. But I still really enjoyed it. This movie feels like it was just handled with so much care. Like it felt like it was literally plucked out of the 1600s. Like I wrote my Letterboxd review. When I first watched it, I was like, man, this must have been like an easy movie to make, pretty low budget, because literally you just need like a cabin near the woods and that's literally it. But contrary to that, they built that cabin from scratch using only methods you're able to use in the 1600s. All the clothing was sewn together using material and methods that were only available at the time. So even though it looks really simplistic in terms of a set, like it literally is just a little shack next to the woods and that's the movie. Every single thing was so meticulously crafted with care and true to the time period. So it really does. And obviously all the dialogue as well was Robert Eggers said in an interview that all the dialogue comes from journals and books that he found from the time and he just plucked it out of there. So really true to the time period. And they worked really hard with that. And it kind of makes sense too, since it is a debut. It kind of seems like usually most people's debuts, when they're a true auteur, they try and it's kind of like, not their magnum opus, but something they've been stewing on for a long time and they want to really make right.
Have you seen his thoughts on it now?
I have not seen his recent thoughts.
So Robert Eggers has said many times in the interview that he can't watch The Witch, and he says it's too amateurish and that he wasn't skilled enough as a filmmaker to make it. And I'm like, that's like, I know a lot of times directors are very much harsh on their work, as any artist is. But yeah, he really just can't watch The Witch. He thinks it's like an amateur film. Like he really doesn't can't stand it, which is surprising to me because I mean, what the fuck do I know? I think this is like an amazing film. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think that boils down to what you said, where artists are just so hard in their own work. It's obviously there's nothing really amateur at all about this in terms of how it was executed. I thought the cinematography was incredible as well. Every single shot has stuff you can find in it. It's one that if you rewatch, you'll pick up new things. Every single shot was meticulously planned and crafted, and there was a lot of thought that went into it. So it just seemed like really just a strategic mastermind trying to go at this movie for his debut. And then like you two were both obviously mentioning heavy religious themes in here. There's a lot of symbolism in this movie, grappling with one's faith. Obviously they're exiled from the community. That's the first minute of the movie. And they're dealing with, God, faith, religion, Satan, battling between the two. A lot of paranoia and delusion in this movie in terms of just both in terms of the actual story, but in terms of actually how they make the movie as well. With, like Seth mentioned, the score is so powerful. The just long shots looking into the woods. They just build that paranoia so well and don't really rely on jump scares. There's maybe like 3 that are really minor. So not like crazy jump scare heavy at all. Also, I kind of noticed it almost went down like the 7 route as well, like a David Fincher 7, where they kind of tackle almost all the sins. We got obviously
I was going to mention that
and gluttony, but I don't think it ticks off all 7, but it definitely ticks off quite a few of them.
I think each character kind of represents something. So you've got like the son, for example, who is obviously lust when we see it. Yeah. Well, am I spoiling it? When obviously he meets the witch for the first time, he kind of gets attracted to her, and you do see that this kind of relationship with the sister where he is kind of that lust figure, and you kind of see it across the board. And maybe like the 2 kids are the like antithesis of what they're all aiming for, because they do kind of rebel and lie and have this obsession with kind of like the devil and the Black Phillip, as we spoke about. I don't know, like I'm not sure on the other ones, but I think it's a case of not 7 sins, but they kind of each character represents something or another. That's what I'd say anyway.
Yeah, and I'll just throw on the spoilers thing now because we'll just kind of get into a deeper conversation to go deeper into that. But yeah, like you said, like the son is clearly lust heavy, because not only just like when the witch, he meets her in the woods and she kind of used that against him. Like there's like multiple moments where he's like looking down on Taylor-Joy's shirt and like she's sleeping and he's like staring at her. So clearly lust from him. The father with like the cup from the mother that gets stolen, like he lies about like taking it and trading it off to get money. So yeah, really heavy on all the sins part there. Just a really good movie of building tension.
The father's choice was to leave the settlement at the start because of his own like pride, I guess.
He had to
Mhm.
be
I think that
pride.
kind of
He
comes into it.
the father saw himself as like this messiah figure the entire time. He
Mhm.
had to be pride.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the last thing I'll kind of mention before we kind of really start talking heavily into the story is I feel like this movie honestly is just like kind of like a prequel to the Salem witch trials in that same time period.
Mhm.
And really by the time the movie ends here, you can kind of see how this whole movie deals with the paranoia of something's going on and we need to find someone to blame for it rather than try and like solve the issue or find the problem. It's like there must be a reason that this thing is happening. You're saying weird things, acting suspicious. We're blaming it all on you. And I feel like that's very similar to in that same exact location in the New England's in the 1600s, Salem witch trials going on in Massachusetts. I feel like it's like very heavily involved and kind of not inspired. Well, yeah, I guess inspired by that because obviously the Salem witch trials indeed did happen before 2015 when this movie came out. Yeah. last
You
thing
don't
I'll say.
say.
Last thing I'll say is it's definitely a movie I appreciated more than I enjoyed. But it's just kind of Eggers style. I know you two are maybe higher on Eggers than me, whereas like The Northman is his most easily palatable film. And we're going to talk more about his whole filmography in a little bit. So I'll hold off on that. But I definitely appreciated the hell out of this movie. And it'll be interesting to see if I rewatch it in the future. Because I think, like I mentioned, there is just so much that on a second watch, I think I'll pick up on. But as for a first watch, I really did enjoy it. Like I'm saying, I appreciate it more than I enjoyed it. I still give it a 7.7 out of 10. And that's not just a throw in a bone because I appreciated the craft of it. Like I did enjoy the movie. It's definitely a slow burn. But I definitely know from a lot of our mutuals on Letterboxd, a lot of people, this isn't their favorite, even though in general, this is a movie that people love. But I think there's quite a few people I follow that are like movie TikTokers that, you know, they're kind of like, I appreciate this movie, but it's just not for me. And I feel like it's a somewhat common sentiment from the people who don't love it as much as others.
Yeah, I think this is like his least popular work, I guess. Although, like, I don't really hear people talking about The Northman either. It's kind of like The Lighthouse is really the standout when it comes to popularity. One thing I would ask is, most people speak about when it comes to the dialogue in this film. I do hear a lot of like people from your side of the pond. Does it bother you at all in the film? No.
I can see it bothering people if like this is their first movie ever, or they've never read a classic novel from like the time period.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems
yeah,
very like
I really understood it.
If
Yeah,
you're
it's
even
like,
remotely
what do you want
educated,
them to
this is
What
perfectly
do you want
fine.
them to speak like us in the 60s? That is just not going to happen, is it? But
yeah,
yeah,
it's not
I
gonna
have
be
heard
like,
quite a few complaints about that.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't have. I mean, I thought it was exactly what I would expect. It's not like a Marie Antoinette movie. Sophia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, where she has like that scene where she has like Converse
seen it.
All Stars sitting in a closet. And it's like, yeah, but she did it on purpose. But it's like, you know, some people want to be true to the time period, other people's don't want to be. And Eggers very much does. I mean, we can see that with his upcoming. Like he just likes old. He doesn't want to make modern movies. I don't think he'll ever make a modern movie. It's just not him. It's not his style. He doesn't like it. But also, Anya Taylor-Joy, because I was like, obviously at the end of this movie, she gets naked and goes to the witch coven and starts floating.
She's free. She can sin.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing about she's free from a family. She's free from why she was driven down. She's free from the religion.
Mhm.
And I love the end. I think also I want to mention as well, one of my favorite shots in this film is the scene like almost right at the start when we first kind of see the witch and she's like on the broomstick kind of flying away through the trees.
Mhm.
That's so fucking cool. I really love that scene. But yeah, the ending's basically just like, that's it. She's allowed to sin. She's allowed to do all these things. She's free from the past. She's free from the family. It's a very self-explanatory ending, but I think it's really, really cool. I really like it.
But yeah, when I saw that she kind of stripped of her clothes and they showed like her backside, I was like, how old was she in this movie? And she was like right
She's
at 18.
older than you think.
But she
really?
was only
I thought
18.
she was,
Yeah, because she's 27 now and this is 2015. She's 27.
I thought she was like 30 now.
No, so she was like right at 18, and this movie only took 25 days to film. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be.
Tyler's doing some research.
Well, no, I was like, I just felt uncomfortable. I was like, okay, it was for sure she had to be 18. Okay, I'm gonna believe that Eggers and the production team weren't like creeps, and that she was indeed of legal age. But it's also a thing where like so many actors and actresses look so much younger than they do. Because in this movie, she looks like 14. Like her face looks so.
That's
young
the point, isn't it? It's like
right,
it's the perspective of how old the women were treated at the time, and they weren't treated for their age. That's the whole kind of point. But she does look. She could pass for like young in this film. I know what you mean. Like it is a little bit uncomfortable at times. Okay.
Yeah, but clearly when things start going wrong, like their crops start failing, well, even before the crops start failing, like they're very poor, like they're ostracized from this community. And once they are, you just see them in this woods and you don't really see any, like in my mind, there's no one within a long ways of them. So they're just kind of on their own trying to survive. And things are going wrong. The crops are failing. What else kind of starts going weird? Like
the kid gets slaughtered immediately. The baby,
Yeah, the
Like,
rabbit
straight away.
just
like right
boob
away.
ripped
like
away.
straight away, like
Yeah.
grabbed and just like fucking. I mean, just
But-
where you thinking when is it that the kid, the actual the main brother, when he gets snatched as well? I think that's like
That was like midway
40-ish
through the
minutes in,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
midway through.
Yeah.
I mean, you notice things are continuously kind of getting wrong and things are slipping away from them. They're in a position where it's just getting worse and worse. And like George said earlier, each one of them is just getting like clipped off by the end of it. It just really is a point. I mean, it kind of gives us pathway to go into the ending, really, with the goat, with the whatever
Black
the
Phillip.
Black Phillip. That's it.
Like
I
was
fucking love that line, man. Does thou like to live deliciously?
Deliciously,
When I first heard that, I was so fucking tripped out. I was like, that's crazy.
There's a movie with obviously a lot of like religious undertone, and there's like a lot you could take away from it. So the entire time I'm watching this movie, I'm like, this Black Phillip, like he's got to mean something. Like he's not just there for no reason. It was like the one aspect of the movie I just could not like figure out. Like the entire time watching this movie, I'm like, okay, this dad clearly sees himself as a messiah figure. He needs to be the man of this house, and it's poetic that he died being crumbled by all of these blocks of wood that he so manly put together. He's sitting at a dinner table. It looks very much like the Last Supper. And then I said earlier, when they get excommunicated, I guess, from the village, it's very reminiscent of Adam and Eve. So I looked into Black Phillip, and there's more Adam and Eve undertone there, where Black Phillip apparently is supposed to represent Satan, which is the snake that gave Eve and Adam that the apple. So Black Phillip, the entire movie, is kind of like guiding Anya Taylor-Joy on this path to freedom, just in a very, obviously not the best way. He's basically kind of like, you need to, free yourself from all of the men in your life. You need to revolt. And then that's why by the end of the movie, she obviously had lost every man in her life. Black Phillip was what you just said, Seth, dropping those like really hardcore lines that I think just
thou like the taste of butter. I fucking love that shit. That's crazy. It's almost in like an erotic tone, like a sensual, intimate tone. Because again,
but it's like fucking frightening. Yeah,
it is, because it's like he's kind of what we're seeing to be the form of Satan, whatever, and it's kind of he's like driving her away and telling her to revolt and saying these like weirdly sensual lines, and it's really like in your face, and I really like that, because I think that is a certain point in the film where I do feel like that is a point where it could put a lot of people off in terms of having it in that format with the kind of voice and stuff like that. And I think it works so well within the themes of the film, especially near in the end when everyone's just kind of getting caught off and he's just kind of speaking to her in this kind of way, and then obviously leading on to the ending.
It could also
I love it though.
Yeah, that the whole like ending like lines from Black Phillip could also be like Robert Eggers basically being like just like wrapping up like this religious film of his and being like, that's kind of like the gist of religion. Like from the outside, you may see it as fucked up or horrific, but on the inside, maybe you see it as more sexual and more appropriate to like the community that you're a part of. So that you can kind of take it as it is there. But yeah, as an overall film, I'd be, because I know Seth, you don't, but for me personally, I prefer this to Scorsese's Silence. So I'm trying to think if there's like any other religious film I would even take above The Witch, because I think from my perspective,
Reformed.
Have you seen
First Reformed?
they're all three of those movies are 4.5 out of 5s for me. I still think I would take The Witch over all three.
It's actually great. I love a religious film.
Oh, they're so like. Have you ever done a TikTok like ranking the like religious film? Like, why have you not done that yet?
No, because the thing is, I am coming at it from a point of view where I have a client, interestingly enough, fitness wise, he got brought up as Catholic. He's not really anymore, but he's from a very Catholic background, and he's actually said that a lot of the films that I speak about, a lot of them take a lot of offense to it. So it is a point where I don't want to put my views across on specifics regarding religion, the themes of like Silence, First Reformed. I'll say my views about what the filmmaker's trying to say, but if I put across my personal views, it's like I don't want to ostracize anyone, make them, put them down. Do you know what I mean? I think it can be like a touchy subject, and I don't know enough personally about the ins and outs of certain religions to speak about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially when you're touching on things like, Last Temptation of Christ, like
that's a big one that people like hate.
Yeah,
huge one, and it's definitely understandable as to why. Like Silence, First Reformed, all these kind of films. I just like to speak about the director's perspective. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard for me to talk about religious films in that kind of way, I guess.
I also feel like it's such an interesting, like, I don't even know where I would start if I would like put together like a list of like the 10 best like religious movies, because there's so many movies. Like the Da Vinci Code has so much religious undertones. Andrei Rublev,
shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many movies that like have these religious undertones, but movies like The Witch or Silence or First Reformed, they're just significantly like more prominent. It's not like it's not like this small theme. It's like the main point of the movie.
The amount of films that have, background themes of faith and believing in yourself, believing in something more, all kind of ties down to, religious ethics and prophecies. But with like Silence, First Reformed, The Witch, they really dial into, what it means and the ins and outs and stuff. So it's a weird one. I just think myself, like from my point of view, I find religion and to talk about religion really interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like, I find it like a really interesting subject, even though I'm not necessarily religious myself. And I think that The Witch is obviously more so, the other films we mentioned, but especially The Witch, there's a lot that goes on there. It just makes for good conversation. Do you know what I mean? Not like a debate, just good, like, to talk. When it's films and you got like a horror, like The Witch, a horror with so many technical aspects and then aspects of, females living in a patriarchal society we spoke about, and then also, religious aspects. There's so with The Witch, it's a 90-minute film, and I could talk about it for hours. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the best thing about Robert Eggers, who obviously we'll speak about, in a little while.
I mean, while we're talking about Adam and Eve too, like obviously there's a very clear symbols of that as well when the brother vomits up an apple. So again, like very clearly Adam and Eve. Like,
did you guys get a little? You guys get a little Hansel and Gretel in there a little bit?
A lot, and that's all. Didn't Robert Eggers do something with Hansel and Gretel? Am I going crazy?
Like I hadn't seen The Witch in maybe like a year, so I like there were a few instances that I forgot, but like the entire time Anya Taylor-Joy and her brother were like walking through the forest. I was like, okay, a little Hansel and Gretel-y. And then the brother obviously walks up to that shack, and the woman opens the door, and like she's obviously looking all, very sexual, very beautiful, very elegant. And she walks up to him and immediately starts to like go for a kiss. And then I was like, this is Hansel and Gretel. Like this is, but which is weird.
Definitely
like,
inspired.
But that's like the one thing that. I say it's weird, but like not in a bad way, because obviously this movie is very religious, and Hansel and Gretel, like I don't remember Hansel and Gretel being like this religious story. So it was a very interesting like addition to the film, if that was his intention. Obviously there could be.
I mean, I'd guess it was like it's very reminiscent, especially when they're walking through and they see like the witch or whatever and the woman. It makes sense. It's like a cool little. I should have actually researched that, to be honest, because I did pick up on that last night. So
why been inspired for sure? Yeah.
Why did this is one part of the movie that I and I don't even know if you guys know the answer, but it's one part of the movie that I like kind of questioned a little bit, and I tried to think of it from like a religious perspective, and I just couldn't understand why this decision was made. Black Phillip smacks the dad, whatever, stabs him, and then as the dad gets up, he drops the axe, and like he stops, like he's not defending himself, he's just like he's letting Black Phillip do whatever he wants to do to him. Like why what was the point of that? Why did he not fight back?
I don't want to hear Seth's takeaways, but my interpretation of that was the father this whole time was super prideful, like you mentioned, and Anya Taylor-Joy early on in the movie was being accused by both her siblings and the mother of being like, sinful, a slut, the reason for all these issues. But the dad was like the one kind of sticking up for her because he just had so much pride in his family and what they're trying to do, exiled from the community. They can do it on their own. But I feel like at that point when Black Phillip went after him, he kind of just gave up. Like, I feel like he was like, I failed. Like my family's dying off.
Yeah.
I failed at trying to protect them.
That was like my initial thought, but then like I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, this is such this movie is just so religious heavy, and like obviously what you just said makes complete sense, but like that's not really a religious POV, I guess. So it's like there has to be like more to it, and then I kept thinking of like like I've mentioned several times, like I look at the father like as like this messiah figure. At least that's how he looks at himself. So like in that moment, why would he have dropped his axe? Is it more of just like an appreciation for everything? Like if you think of yourself as the messiah, you're not going to obviously attempt to kill black. I don't know. I've been thinking about it for so long, and I just don't understand that decision.
Could be like he was thinking he was being punished for his sins, and he was kind of accepting that as his fate, and that he had
Yeah,
a
that
sinful
too.
person, and that he's being punished by Satan at this point, or Satan, to kind of all the sins he's had. And he's like, yeah, you know what? I haven't been a good faithful Catholic, or actually don't Protestant. I don't know which actual religion technically they were part of the church in the 1600s, but maybe he was just accepting his sins and accepting his fate, that he's lived in sin, that it's time for him to go.
Yeah,
but I don't know, Seth, do you have any interpretations on like why Black Phillip was ramming when he was ramming the father, and the father had the axe, that he just didn't fight back and he just dropped the axe and just accepted he was going to die?
Yeah, sorry, I just did so. I think you can look at it from a multitude of ways. I don't know what you guys said. I'd probably say my own interpretation would be, as a religious man, it'd be acceptance and accepting his fate, accepting perhaps his sin, and accepting, this is his way, this is the way his life's going to go. Or you can obviously look at it from what we spoke about earlier, like the prideful sense and the father's kind of take on that, what we saw when getting exiled from the town at the start. I would probably lean towards the fact that he's just, it is a case of acceptance. It is a case of understanding his sin, understanding where he went wrong, understanding what he's done wrong in his life, and understanding where he's going to go now, and how he has to accept that this is, his life. And if he does anything more or takes it any further, the worse it's going to get for him in the afterlife, I guess. So I'd probably lean towards like acceptance, but there's probably a multitude of things, but I'd probably go that route, I think. Anyway, what did you guys say?
I've unless George has a different interpretation, I said like the exact same words as Seth just said.
Acceptance.
Just everything you said, both in terms of acceptance and accepting that he's been sinful, and just like giving in and the pride. Yeah, we kind of said the same.
I mean, that's the obvious one. There probably is some like
There's probably some deeper shit there, but one thing I was just kind of thinking of is this movie's like, so religious persecution is obviously like a huge theme in this, maybe arguably the main theme in this movie, and it's kind of like just multiple layers of the onion, because if you think about it, New England in general was a colony that was, or just in America in general, was a country that was founded on people fleeing Europe from religious persecution to start their own life and be free from it. And then they're in that colony beginning of the movie. So they've already found religious persecution or freed from it by going to America. Then after that, they're in America. They get banished from their own colony because of religious persecution. So then they're on their own. And at the very end, Anya Taylor-Joy becomes like a witch, is free from her family, free from religion. So it's like, there's like multiple layers here of like getting free from religion, but you're not actually free. And then you get free again, but then again, your family's still there and not actually free. And then finally at the end, the big climax, she's finally completely free to, I don't know, ride a broomstick off into the wilderness.
Naked.
Yeah.
Deuces.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything else to cover on The Witch?
Nah, I'm gonna watch The Lighthouse next week. I'm gonna decide, because I think one of them has to get a 5 from me. I do, maybe both. Who knows? But I do love. But I mean, I'll save my Robert Eggers talk, I guess, for when we move on to that.
Well, so it's a 4.5 as of now for both you and George, and it's a 4-star from me, 7.7 out of 10. Don't think Cam's seen it. But yeah, we'll just transition right into the Eggers versus Peele versus Aster. And I say versus more as just a communication thing, not actually. I mean, we'll discuss who we like more, but these three are kind of the figureheads of modern horror filmmaking right now in terms of the ones coming out with the most interesting projects in general. And they're kind of the big three in terms of what people mostly are talking about in the horror space post 2015. I think of the three people's filmography, Robert Eggers was the first with The Witch. But yeah, let's just jump into it. We're not going to review each film from each of them, but we're kind of discuss their filmographies. Who do you like the most? Kind of what we think about each filmmaker in general. But let's just start out with Eggers, since we've been talking about him. We've been mentioning like, we'll save that for the Eggers portion. Let's just start with Eggers. So 2015, he came out with The Witch. And then he followed that up in 2019 with The Lighthouse, starring Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, which is also another horror thriller. And then The Northman in 2022, last year, with Alexander Skarsgård, reunited with Willem Dafoe again from The Lighthouse, and Anya Taylor-Joy from The Witch. And this was, I mean, there's like horror undertones, but mostly this is a Norse adventure action movie. So not really a horror, but there's still like a lot of, historical Norse lore that could be considered, more horror thematic elements that are still definitely involved in there. So those are the 3 films he's had on IMDb. 7.4 for The Lighthouse, and then The Northman and The Witch are at 7. So kind of like, I don't know. The thing is interesting that when you guys are mentioning The Lighthouse versus The Witch, talking about it so much, comparing the two, I don't get why The Lighthouse is reviewed so much better when, to me, like, I haven't seen The Lighthouse in a while. Like, I feel like they're both the equal amount of like obscureness and weirdness and deeply thematic that, like, I don't get why one is so much favored over the other.
I agree. I actually think The Lighthouse is weirder than The Witch. The Lighthouse is a lot more going on.
I think
is it just Rob Pat? Like, is that?
I think The Witch is like
maybe
way more accessible than The Lighthouse. Like, I would never
The
recommend
Northman.
The Witch, 50 feet,
The Lighthouse.
Like, I would never recommend The Lighthouse to like one of my like casual movie going friends, but I would The Witch. So it's very odd to see that like The Lighthouse is like the more the better reviewed film
on like
of
everything
the two.
on Letterboxd as well. I think, as well as
but then I guess you could look at it from the lens that there are a lot of like the minute you bring in religion into something, it becomes just this incredibly polarizing film, because obviously there are a lot of people that take religion very seriously, and if there's any even hint of a negative portrayal of religion in your film, you're in hot water. You're at risk of being review bombed immediately. And that's not to say that The Lighthouse doesn't have any religious undertone, because it does. But maybe The Witch is just a more in your face, and then obviously that ending is a more, I guess, very anti-church type of ending, where it's like the woman breaking free from, like you said, Seth, this patriarchal society. And I guess it's like an interesting play on Adam and Eve and these messianic figures. So once you bring in religion, if there's any like hint of, a negative portrayal of the Bible or of these stories, I feel like you're at risk of just being either 1, review bombed, or 2, just a box office flop that no one wants to go see.
I remember watching when I came out of The Northman. I wanted to see that, like, what was it? March, April time?
It was like early 2022, yeah.
No,
The Northman, the Northbog.
Yeah.
The Northman, early 2022.
I thought he said The
like
Lighthouse.
March,
That's why I said
2022,
2019.
Yeah, so when I came out of The Northman, I remember like the first thing I said to Anna was like, this is his accessible film. Not that there's not a lot going on, because there certainly is. But I think as far as it goes, like a Norse epic, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of shocking sequences, but nothing that's it's difficult.
There's a lot of Willem Dafoe dick.
That's fucking weird. See, and yeah, I mean the cast as well. You've got Ethan Hawke at the start. You've got Skarsgård, Anya Taylor-Joy. You've got Nicole Kidman. You've got what's his fucking name, Willem Dafoe, etc. So, and I remember just thinking, because this is like a Norse epic. Visually it's beautiful. You got people talking about the end is like a really huge epic battle sequence. You got people. I thought that was going to be like his most accessible, but it seems that not accessible, but his most popular, I guess, because of the themes and because it's a lot easier to handle, and because for most people it's not a horror, it's not a thriller. You're not in this. It's not a folk horror with religious themes, and it's not a weird and wacky thriller with fucking so much going on. So I thought, that's going to be his most popular, and it turned out kind of the opposite, because I think The Northman didn't, if I'm remembering correctly, didn't do too well when it comes to numbers, did it?
A lot of like mainstream movie watchers, I'm not saying that derogatorily, I'm saying that just people in general just like watching only a few movies a year. A lot of people were bored with The Northman. They said it was like very boring, slow, not an exciting, like from the trailers they expected it to be like a bloody, vengeful
exactly.
movie.
That's a bunch of
leading up to that.
Yeah, that's general audience members, again, not derogatory, but a lot of people that aren't familiar with like Robert Eggers' artistic point of view when he's making a film. And in fairness, the Northman trailers did come off very, Viking epic, not Viking. What's the word I'm looking for?
No, I think Viking worked.
They just came off very like this epic film, but in reality, it's a Robert Eggers film. So there's a lot of like artistic flair to it that I think a lot of people didn't expect. I think that's what explains. I just looked at it, the 64% audience score on Rotten Tomato compared to the 90% critic score.
I think The Northman, like Seth said, I 100% agree. It's the most accessible film from him, but I'm not saying it's like the most accessible film, period. Because especially like if there's a movie that's on TV, if you don't sit, if you got to make it through the first 20 minutes for it to become like accessible. I think the first, like, especially the beginning of the movie is super weird, wacky when they're kind of in those huts and doing all like the Nordic chants.
The Willem Dafoe shit.
Like shit. Like if you, I think if like a dad turned this on halfway through the movie, they'd watch it and be like, oh, this is like a fun little Viking movie. They start at the beginning, they'd turn it off after 15 minutes and be like, this is weird stuff. I don't really
it's not. I mean, it's Robert Eggers. It's not accessible, but I think out of the three, it does surprise me that it's that it's a lot more.
This is just completely unrelated, but my favorite Letterboxd review is the number one Letterboxd review for The Northman. It said, men will literally avenge their father, save their mother, and kill Fjolnir before going to therapy.
Yeah, but
I've seen that one, actually.
I think the trailer just set it up for failure in terms of like.
I don't remember the trailer, to be honest.
I just remember the trailer was him rowing the boat and like doing that same. I can't remember the exact words. It's been a while since I've seen it, but he says that same thing throughout the movie, like, "I'll avenge my father, I'll avenge you, brother or mother, or whatever." Yeah, and it's like him chanting that, and then like it leads up to like the final battle. But it's like even before he's like rowing on the boat, like starting that mission, like it's a lot of the movie goes by before then. Yeah, but I don't know. I really dug The Northman. It's my favorite Eggers by a good margin. Again, I like all his movies. I really liked it. The production design in all his films are incredible, but first two are a lot more one location. Well, they literally are basically one location in all intents and purposes for The Witch and The Lighthouse, whereas The Northman obviously is an epic that crosses countries, maybe scale. Continents. Like it's massive scale, and the studio knew that. That's why they made a theatrical trailer that made it look like an action adventure, like epic movie.
It was a different release.
Eggers movie. I think they were hoping this was going to be a big box office win.
Because it's like a lot of people, I'm assuming what the studio thought is, the reception on The Witch and The Lighthouse in general were really positive. So it's, let's give him, a bit of bigger of a budget and make it kind of huge scale epic, but make something which can come off as accessible. So you've got like a Norse Viking period, which, a lot of people will flood to if they see it on a trailer, but didn't really work out. But for me, I think so. Robert Eggers, onto the conversation we said earlier, Robert Eggers is my favorite of the three,
right?
Just because it's, for me, is like perfect, because I love the time periods he goes to. I love his flair, artistic style, and I love the themes he puts in films. And I mean, not to mention, like, Nosferatu is probably one of my most anticipated films, maybe ever. I think he is the perfect director to direct something like that, and I think the things he tackles are just so in line with my taste. It's crazy. But yeah, so Robert Eggers is definitely my favorite of the three, anyway.
Yeah, so I guess we'll kind of go into Peele's filmography now, and then kind of at the end, I know Seth just mentioned it, but we'll kind of go over our overall rankings and comparisons of them. But I think we'll just go kind of through each person individually. So Jordan Peele, also 3 movies. Everyone kind of knew him from Key and Peele prior to this, but he's obviously a big.
I actually didn't. I didn't really know what that was, to be honest.
Really?
Get out.
Maybe it's more of an American thing. I don't know. I definitely knew him from Key and Peele. But yeah, so 2017, he had his debut, which is incredibly impressive, Get Out. And then in 2019, he followed that up with Us. And then 2022, Nope. And then it says on IMDb, I guess 2024 is an untitled 4th film, because I remember us covering like a year ago that he lost the bid to, I can't remember the director actually. When he like fired his manager and he was like throwing a fit because he's like, I needed that script and you just screwed me over here.
What was it now? Yeah, I do remember.
I can't remember the movie or who the director was that got it, but he was very pissed off about that. But so Get Out, Us, and Nope. I'll start off the conversation right here with saying I think he's the most accessible director of the 3, and I feel like that's not a hot take. Like, I feel like
easily
the most successful. Or accessible. I mean, in terms of, and I could recommend any of those movies, even though like I don't love like Us as much as the other 2, or even Nope that much compared to Get Out. But you could recommend any of those 3, and then anyone can watch it and be like, yeah, I either liked it or I didn't. But they're not going to be like, that was weird, I'm put off by it. They're very accessible films. He doesn't really go as weird as the other 2.
No, but he's. I mean, he's still, not accessible in the general because he has a lot going on. Peele has got a lot going on in his head that he puts in his films, but his films work the best for a general audience. Like, I mean, Anna is the perfect example. She's watched a film from each of the directors. She watched Midsummer from Aster, Get Out and Us from Peele, and The Northman from Eggers, and she definitely took significantly the most from Get Out. I mean, that kind of goes with the film's quality, because most people do. Get Out, well, for me, is one of the best directorial debuts of this century, but it is very much a thing that it's kind of exciting, it's thrilling, but there's a lot you can take from it that's understandable as well. If you got one of your friends who doesn't really watch films in general to watch like fucking Beau is Afraid, you know, they'd be like, what the fuck?
They'd be like, don't ever
Do you know what I
recommend
mean?
me a movie again.
They would unfriend
Yeah,
you.
because
Yeah.
but, like Beau is Afraid, or like maybe even like, you know, if you've got someone who's really not just crazy new in cinema, perhaps this isn't looking down on them, but someone who exclusively watching like franchise films, they have them as a little kid. If you even put the Lighthouse on them, they'd be
Right.
like, what the fuck is this? Do you know what I mean? Whereas Get Out is one where it's accessible, but there's also a lot going on, which is why it works entwined perfectly with an audience member. So yeah, Peele definitely the most accessible by far.
He's my favorite of the three for sure.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to it. I think Ari Aster, in my opinion, is the only one with a miss in Men. I don't think Eggers.
You mean Beau is Afraid? Men is Alex Garland.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Am I losing? I'm losing my mind. I'm so sorry.
Men was a miss though, but
Men absolutely.
we've just
Super miss, no doubt. But okay, then
sorry,
none
Alex.
of them have missed. But I guess if we're including Beau is Afraid, then which we obviously are including Beau is Afraid, then yes, Ari Aster is still my third of the three, just because he made Beau is Afraid, which I think is the worst of the 9 films. But yeah, Jordan Peele not only is the most accessible, but he is my favorite of the three. I like Nope. It seems a great deal more than most. I love that. Jordan Peele, across all of his movies, I think has just this awesome way of like calling back to like such classic films of the past and just adding like this modern flair to it, especially in the sense of Nope. There's so much, there's so many callbacks to like Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and again, he's just adding this new modern flair for like, you know, this new audience of horror lovers, which I absolutely adore. And then I've said it time and time again, I think Get Out is one of, if not the greatest horror screenplay ever written, one of the greatest screenplays just in general ever written. For a directorial debut, I think that's like one of the craziest feats in filmmaking that we've ever seen. Us is still a 4.5 out of 5 for me. It's the one I find myself rewatching the least, but I still do enjoy it a lot. Again, I just think he has just this very interesting and unique way of telling these very profound stories. And Us, I think, displays that the best between the three. But yeah, Peele is my favorite of the three. 4 if we're including Alex Garland now.
For Jordan Peele, I actually I rate it positively in terms of it's like a 6.7 out of 10, but I didn't really care for Us. When the movie ended, I was a little bummed out. Like I felt like it left a lot unanswered that I don't think was like a meaningful non-answer to it. I feel like he wrapped things up that I just didn't love the way it ended. And I don't know, Us was underwhelming. Although I will say for me, like it was clearly like the scariest for me of the 3 movies Peele has done in terms of like true horror elements.
I would say that's
more
like
of a thriller.
the
Nope
true
is sci-fi.
horror.
That's a true horror. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially like the scenes where the little girls like in like the maze and stuff. Like there's so much tension and dread in those scenes.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool, interesting little movie. With some incredible acting performances that are just like breathtaking to watch. Is it Lupita Nyong'o who's the main woman who doesn't have her voice? Super cool how they kind of tie that story in, but I just didn't care for Us in general. Like it's just like a fine movie. Nope, 8.3 out of 10 for me. So I did really like it, but again, I was a little bumped out when it ended. I was just kind of like a little like the tiniest of tiny feelings of being like, oh, that was it. But very, because obviously 8.3 is a very, very good score. So I still very much loved it. And Get Out, of the 3 directors, is my favorite film of any of them. So I think Get Out is a true masterpiece. Whereas Nope is kind of in the middle, and Us has kind of bummed me out. But I'm interested, Seth, your kind of opinion on the 3 movies.
Yeah, so Nope, to be fair, Nope is one I've only seen once, and I think that will improve. I give it a 3.5. I thought it was cool. Jordan Peele's in a really unique position where I don't know if he'll ever be able to meet the feat of his first. And I set my expectations way too high with him just because of my love for Get Out and how many times I've watched it. But I think Nope tries to tackle a lot. Some worked for me, some didn't. Same with Us as well. So as I also have a 3.5, both from 3.5. I like both of them. I enjoy both of them, but nothing I love there, apart from obviously a few moments, of course. And I think with Jordan Peele, you always get sort of an interest and something to start a conversation out of, and he always puts a lot into his films. But Get Out for me is like a true like I guess in a sense modern masterpiece. I think it's that good. I think it's it works in every element. I think Jordan Peele truly, the screenplay that George mentioned is fucking genius in that film. And I've probably watched it. I would say I've watched Get Out probably at least 5 to 10 times, maybe more. And it seems to get better continuously, which is not something you can say for a lot of directors. So yeah, Nope and Us, I have a 3.5. I enjoy both of them, don't love both of them, and Get Out is like by far and away his best for me. It's a 5-star, and I probably, to be fair, at the end, I think I've got my ranking right now in my head of like like all directors, so all 9 films. I think I can do it. So I'll probably say that at the end. I'll leave that to the end.
Yeah, I'll do that at the end as well. I have them all ranked right here. But yeah, anything else you want to say on Jordan Peele before we kind of get into Ari Aster?
No, it seems cool.
Sorry, hold on.
How old is Jordan Peele?
Yeah, keep talking real quick.
42. I just made that up.
He's 42.
Let's see how far off I am. I literally made that up.
I think
he has a lot of gray. He might be older. Jordan Peele,
I'd say early 40s. I'm saying early 40s.
44. So we were both close.
Wow.
Close.
But he's got time though. Like he's got a lot of time.
This says upcoming movie from him is Blade, but I feel like that's wrong on Google.
That Blade is absolutely wrong.
If you literally Google Jordan Peele, if you Google Jordan Peele, and just like the top thing is an upcoming movie, Blade. I'm like,
have you guys ever like looked at Google, like looked at some of the casts? Sometimes they're so off. Like if you search like The Godfather, it comes up with like Robert De Niro as one of the
I was just gonna say sometimes like, you look up the cast, it'll just be like in a franchise. You look up like Scream 2 cast, it'll just be like every person ever been in Scream.
In the whole
like Jenna Ortega was in a movie in 1998. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
George, do you need to buy more time? What are you trying to look
No, you're good. So the script that Jordan Peele wanted sold for $38 million, which in the horror world, I guess, is just a ridiculous amount.
It's quite a lot for a horror film. Just for the script.
Yeah. So it's a screenplay by Zach Kreger, who I believe
he did
Barbarian.
He did Barbarian.
Yeah. He did Barbarian, and now he's also. So this is the part that I think I'm confused on. Why was the script sold for $38 million, but he's the one that's going to be directing it? So like, who did he sell it to himself?
Sold the rights? I don't fucking know.
They need to.
Yeah,
maybe
I remember. I mean, we talked about it on like ReelTok episode 3.
Yeah, we took that a long time ago.
I do remember speaking about this. Yeah.
It's called Weapons, and it was
so it was sold to New Line, and then for $38 million, including the budget and Zach Kreger. So the deal included him. I thought we didn't do that
sell
anymore.
himself like that? That's
crazy. I thought getting $5 million to direct and $10 million total on the budget.
Okay, so I think what it probably was Zach Kreger set out to write a screenplay, and I'm sure there's some contractual thing with that. Like in our mind, we think, oh, you write a screenplay like it's yours, but I'm sure it's like maybe through a studio that funded his time to write it, and then it goes up for auction. And it was like Jordan Peele wanted to buy it and direct it himself, but then New Line Cinema or whoever that company is bought it and was like, yeah, you can come in and direct it. But it's kind of like, it's almost sounded like Jordan Peele, not stealing it away because it was all above board, but he liked the script so much that he's like, I wanted to direct this. I don't want Zach Kreger to, but Zach Kreger, I mean, he's acclaimed. Barbarian did well, but I don't think his net worth is 38 million, enough to throw away 38 million to outbid Jordan Peele on his own. So yeah, it sounds like, interesting though. But I mean, we'll see how that goes. But
I should have placed a bid for that movie.
Yeah, that's how much you're rolling in these days. ReelTok Patreon in the description down below. Go check out all our perks. We're going to try and purchase some scripts to horror movies so that we can start directing ourselves, as we talked about on our Q&A episode. But we'll get into Ari Aster now. He's come out with 3 films as well: 2018 Hereditary, Midsummer in 2019, and Beau is Afraid in 2023. So he has the most condensed career of them all in terms of all his movies came out the most recently and kind of back to back. But yeah, so obviously Hereditary was a massive horror success that kind of took the world by storm. Midsummer, more like Hereditary is obviously divisive. Everyone we're talking about here for these directors and their movies, they're all divisive to an extent. For the movies individually, Jordan Peele the least so, I would say. But Hereditary came out, and then Midsummer was followed up a year after, which definitely was more polarizing, although I definitely know a lot of people who like it more than Hereditary. But on average, the Hereditary scores are higher. And then Beau is Afraid coming out this year, which was a massive box office flop, but also was like massively divisive, which I'd say probably it has to be his most divisive movie that he's come out with, even though all of them are divisive to an extent.
It definitely is. I'd say that Ari Aster is like he's a filmmaker that I appreciate more than I like in general. I think why I appreciate him so much is he is so self-indulgent. He makes films for himself, and he doesn't give a fuck if you like them or not. And I really appreciate that. I think it's kind of like it's not a comparison in the slightest, but like Wes Anderson, he really leans into his style, his formula. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. He doesn't really care. And I do appreciate that about him. I am very, very high on Hereditary. Like very high. I have like a 4.5. I think Hereditary is fantastic. I think it's one of the best modern horrors, which obviously we'll go into later on in this episode. I think Midsummer is every watch it gets worse for me. I'll be honest. It's like a 3 now.
I'm the same way. Yeah. Not I will say, but it's getting worse on rewatches for me.
I will say though, I had a conversation with Chris a few weeks ago, Movies Are Therapy, and he said that the director's cut is meant to be a lot better.
Yeah,
a lot of people say that. So I was like, okay,
it's been released in theaters this month for anyone in America. Just to know, the director's cut of Midsummer.
Yeah, you got The Witch in theater as well. It's crazy. I would fucking die for that one. Yeah, and then Midsummer I think is okay. I like 3. Beau's Afraid, same sort of thing. Beau's Afraid was a weird one though, because Midsummer I kind of like a lot of it, then don't, and like a lot of them don't. Beau's Afraid is like I love the first hour and a half of that film. I think it's fantastic. Last hour and a half, didn't like it at all. As soon as the kind of stage play went, I tuned out of that. So I think Ari Aster is a director I really appreciate because he's so self-indulgent. He doesn't care if you don't like his film. He makes films for him, which I really like. I also, just to mention, I don't like his he did a short film which is very polarized called The Strange Thing About the Johnsons. If you guys have heard of it, it's on Letterboxd. I think it's horrible, but let you be the judge. It's on YouTube. At least just a bad film. But yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I like all his films, I guess, because 2 3s and a 4.5. But Hereditary for me is like Get Out was for Jordan Peele, but even more so, just far and away his best work. But I'm always going to watch his films because they're so weird, technical marvels, offer a lot in terms of commentary. So I'm always going to watch them, but I don't. I haven't loved his last 2. I'll say that, for certain anyway.
Yeah, George, what are your thoughts on his films?
I think I'm a little higher on Midsummer than you guys are. I've only seen it twice, and again, I haven't seen that one in probably like a year or so. But I think that's like another folk horror movie that I just find myself really attached to. Hereditary is top 5 for me all time, not even modern horror.
All-time horror.
All-time horror.
Shit,
I think that's one of those movies that has legitimately made me lose sleep. And I feel like I've said this all the time, like not even trying to be manly. Like it takes a lot to like frighten me to the point of like losing sleep. Hereditary had like multiple scenes and multiple like so much imagery that just stuck in my head forever. And then obviously I think so highly of Toni Collette, and I think she put on one of the greatest performances of all time, not only in a horror movie. Beau is Afraid, I kind of have the same thoughts as you, Seth, where first hour and a half I was loving so much. Like I was sitting in theaters and I'm like, this is gonna rival Hereditary for me if it continues this way. And then, like you said, everything from the play scene on just kind of falls off the rails for me. But I do, like you said again, Seth, I do adore that Ari Aster just makes movies for himself. He has a vision. He's going to put that vision to screen. Doesn't matter if his movie is an hour and a half or 4 hours long, no matter how long it takes to tell a story, no matter how weird he needs to be to tell this story, to express his vision. He's going to do it. He's going to go there. And I think very few filmmakers these days are that ambitious about their projects. So that's one thing I absolutely adore about Ari Aster. If I were to say his films between the 3 filmmakers we've discussed are the least accessible, what would you say to me?
I personally think Ari Aster's the least accessible.
Yeah, I think he's the least accessible, especially with both.
Actually,
I mean,
far behind.
For me, it's him and Eggers. I think, like we've said, I think Jordan Peele is the most accessible of the 3. But I think when you look at his filmography between Hereditary and Midsummer, just 2 overly graphic, overly horrific movies with some imagery that'll just be ingrained in your head forever. And then you have Beau is Afraid, which is just this almost 3-hour just nightmare panic attack. So I think from that perspective, it's just a little less accessible for like a general audience member. And again, not a derogatory term. But yeah, I think yeah, go.
I think he's like I'm trying to think. I'd say Midsummer and Hereditary, they're not like accessible, into the general audience, but they're more accessible for me than like probably The Lighthouse and The Witch. For me, if you took at all three directs, I'd say the least accessible ones would probably be Beau is Afraid, absolutely, The Lighthouse, and The Witch. So I'd say Ari Aster and Rob Eggers are very, very much less accessible than Peele, for example. But yeah, I'd probably say Hereditary is a weird one because there's a lot going on, but I think it's quite obvious what he's trying to portray. Not in a bad way. I think Hereditary is amazing. Midsummer is a bit different. Midsummer is obviously less accessible, and Beau is Afraid like really just drives out of the water, and that's kind of why I admire Beau is Afraid. And I am keen to rewatch it because obviously, like Tyler, I think Tyler gave it like a 3 on first watch, and then you bumped it up to like a 4, I think, on second watch. So I do think that will really pick up for me because there's so much going on. That's kind of why I admire him so much, because he put so much into that film. And it's funny. Do you guys think that like his next one will be even fucking weirder? Do you know what I mean?
It's a Western, so I mean,
oh shit, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
That's why to me, Robert, and I know I have a comment, but I'm gonna save it for when we compare all the three directors. But Aster alone, just focusing on him. Yeah, Beau is Afraid was like the lowest of all three of them for me when I first saw it, and then I rewatched it, and there's obviously the big like rug pull at the end when you finally figure out what's all going on in Beau is Afraid. And then once you rewatch it, like so much of it is not obvious, but there's so many hints and so subtle. And I'm like, wow, this is actually way more. Because at first I thought I was like, I was like, oh, this is very self-indulgent. But beyond that, I was like, this is very on the nose, like not that subtle. But then when I rewatched, I was like, oh, this is actually really subtly like more masterful than I gave it credit for. And I definitely prefer it to Hereditary at this point, or Midsummer at this point, because Midsummer just kind of been dropping off for me a bit. But Hereditary is my favorite of the bunch. Easily by far the most scary of all 9 of the movies from these three directors. Like in terms of like a true horror scary movie, Hereditary is easily number 1 for that. But Midsummer is definitely like more like a paranoia fueled thriller, which is also kind of Beau is Afraid too. Very heavy on paranoia. But yeah, I don't know. I really like all three of his films. Like they're all kind of neck and neck for me, with Hereditary being the standout, but they're all up there. Like they're all 4.5s for me. We'll see. I want to rewatch Hereditary, but also don't want to rewatch Hereditary. Freaking spooky ass movie. But yeah, I really like Ari Aster. I think he's just such an interesting filmmaker. And I just love that he, like George mentioned, he makes movies he wants to make and he doesn't care about the reception. Like after he dropped Hereditary, he could easily, it elevated him in such a limelight. He could have just continued making, A24-ish style horror movies and continue riding that success wave. But Midsummer is very different than Hereditary. Beau is Afraid is on a different continent and a different planet than the other two.
It's Midsummer.
And then I was going for a Western.
They're all like 24, right?
Yeah, actually all three are. So. Yeah. Whereas The Northman is not for Eggers, but the other two are, and none of Peele's are A24. Yes. But The Witch and The Lighthouse are. So I really like Aster. I'm very excited when he has a new movie coming out because I'm like, what the hell is he going to make this time? But yeah, I don't know. I'm ready to get into comparing the three. If you guys don't have anything else on Aster.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the one thing for me is like, I think Aster and we talked about, obviously, I think everyone will agree that Peele is the most accessible out of the three, and the other two are kind of like on a different level in terms of not being as accessible. But I also think in terms of being just interesting, like to me, Eggers and Aster are on such a different level than Peele in terms of like interesting directors that I'm like interested to see where they go with it. I don't know how to best articulate it, but I feel like in terms of making like interesting films with like, Peele has a ton of deeper meanings in his film, don't get me wrong, but I'm so much more interested to see the minds of Eggers and Aster than I am Peele, even though I think Peele on the flip side is probably the most I'm excited to see in quotes in theaters, because I'm like the most confident it's going to be like a digestible thriller horror that I'm probably going to enjoy, where the other two have to go in with a little bit of like how wacky and wild is going to be. But I think in terms of being an interesting filmmaker, I think that those two are like on a different level than Peele for me personally, which I think is a hot take because I think a lot of people obviously love Jordan Peele, but I think the other two are just so much more interesting as filmmakers than Peele is.
I think
we're all going to have not derogatory to Peele.
Outside of Get Out, I don't think we would talk about a Jordan Peele as long as we just talked about like The Witch, or as long as we would talk about, Hereditary or Beau is Afraid if we were to do a deep dive.
We should do films. Patrons, if you're listening, do Get Out.
Do Hereditary. Do Hereditary.
No, because they've seen it. No, they've seen it now though. Like we want to give them some horror, like some different shit. But do Get Out. I'd love to talk about Get Out. I think that'd be a fucking really good speak. You know what I mean? I'd love that.
Yeah, but so what's your guys' rankings of the directors as well as the movies for like all 9 movies, ranking from worst to best. Are either of you ready to do that right now?
I think I could run through
George,
it right now.
let's hear it.
I think of the directors, I think I would go Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele
as one, right? Number 1.
As one. Oh my God. Shit. I'm sorry. I'm not ready, actually.
I'll go first. I have mine pulled up right here. So first I'll do the movies. So in 9th place, last place of the directors, I have Us. Then in 8th place, I have The Witch. And then 7th, The Lighthouse. 6, Nope. 5, Beau is Afraid. 4, Midsummer. Actually, no, flip that. 5, Midsummer. 4, Beau is Afraid. 3, Hereditary. 2, The Northman. And 1, Get Out. And my least favorite of the 3 is Jordan Peele. And then it'll be Robert Eggers and then Ari Aster. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I think Ari Aster and Robert Eggers for me are like a tier above Jordan Peele personally. But like I said, Us is my least favorite. That's a 6.7 out of 10, so 3.5 star. And then we immediately jump up to 4 stars with The Witch, and from there on up. So obviously these 3 filmmakers make great movies, but for me, Aster's 1, barely followed by Eggers, and then Peele.
Okay, I think I got mine. Okay, so movie wise, Get Out is my number 1. Then I go Hereditary, and then I go The Lighthouse. Those are 3 5 stars for me. Now we move into the 4.5s. I go The Witch at 4. I go Nope at 5. Midsummer at 6. And then that finishes off the 4.5 stars. I'm sorry, no. Then I go the Us at 7. That finishes off the half stars. And then I go The Northman at 8, which is my 4-star. And then for me personally, but again, I need a rewatch. There's a big drop to the I believe 3 for Beau is Afraid. And then I would go Jordan Peele, Robert Eggers, Ari Aster if I were to rank the 3.
We all have different rankings. That's very interesting.
That's the beauty of film.
Yeah, that's true. Wait, do we have different? Oh, no, yeah. Tyler had Ari Aster first, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I would go, ranking the directors, I'd go Eggers, Peele, Aster. So best to worst. And then I would say the films wise, I'd have Midsummer last, then Beau is Afraid, and then Nope, then Us, then The Northman. 4th place would probably be The Lighthouse right now. 3rd place would be The Witch. And top 2, I think, would be the same as George. Hereditary is 2nd, and Get Out at 1st. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Stop copying me, man.
Interesting. So
it is interesting that Robert Eggers
is your favorite, but not in your top 2.
Not in the top 2. Like it's like I think so. To be fair, The Witch, I don't know. The Witch and the Hereditary are very, very close. But like The Northman, The Lighthouse, and The Witch, he's like the most consistent for me. Like I really, really like all of them. Whereas like Peele and Aster have both got a couple where I'm like, I like them. You know what I mean? But yeah, Eggers, Peele, Aster, definitely my 3.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our discussion on the modern horror makers of Eggers, Peele, and Aster. We're going to quickly kind of touch on 2 modern horror filmmakers in terms of body horror, which is Julia Ducournau, who has directed both Titan and Robbie in 2016, Titan in 2021. And then we have Brandon Cronenberg, obviously the son of David Cronenberg, who is a longtime iconic horror director and very similar styles in terms of body horror. Brandon Cronenberg has Antiviral from 2012, and then he kind of took a gap break, and then 2020 had Possessor, and then this year he had Infinity Pool. We'll just have an open discussion on all of them. I've only seen 1 out of the 5. I've only seen Infinity Pool. I haven't seen any Julia Ducournau. So I'll let you guys kind of jump into the conversation here, wherever you want to start with these 2.
I unfortunately have not seen any Julia Ducournau.
Do you want me to just touch on
that? You could touch
on
that.
I thought you'd seen Titan. I guess
I had that. I swear that's like
I need to see Titan for sure.
It's been on my watch list since the day it was released. And then Brandon Cronenberg, I've only seen Possessor and Infinity Pool. I didn't even know. I thought Possessor was his debut, if I'm being honest. I didn't know he had a film prior to that.
No, Antiviral was with the guy from Get Out. The brother, like
The
brother in the family.
Yeah.
Rachel, what's his name? Caleb Landry Jones. That's the one. Yeah, because he was in 3 Billboards as well. Yeah. So Julia, how do you pronounce her name? Did you search that, Tyler? Because I actually have no
did not. It's just It's a very French name. I mean, Ducournau is what I'm saying.
Ducournau, yeah. So she is, for me, like one of the most exciting for filmmakers in the space right now, especially female filmmakers as well, because there's been a very a lack of prominent female filmmakers in the horror industry for quite some time, and I think she is. So first of all, obviously, she released Raw, which is in 2016. Raw is like, people compare it a lot to Bones and All because it's a coming of age kind of cannibal movie, which really takes the elements from that, but it's a lot more outrageous, I would say, and visceral in terms of its imagery. She as a filmmaker is very full on. Like, when people say like, oh, I couldn't even finish the film, I was sick, I'm like that's ridiculous. With her films, I completely understand. There is some fucking weird shit. Like, there were points where even I look away in her films, but it's very intelligent. She makes really intelligent coming of age films. So she came up with Raw, which is the beautiful coming of age, but it's kind of masked in this cannibal take of a woman kind of growing up, and it's stylish and it's outrageous and it really like pushed the boundaries. And then, so I give that a 4-star. I do really like that. I think you both would probably like it as well. But she released Titan in 2021. I watched Titan for the first time with Anna, actually, and she even quite liked it, which she said a lot in July. And then I watched it again last week, so it's kind of fresh on the mind. So I put it as a 4.5 first watch and a 5-star last week. So it actually comes in at like, it officially is in my top 10 horrors ever. Body horror is a little bit different, but it's probably one of the most interesting films of the past 20 years in terms of how much it has. She really takes a drive on queer relationships, on sexuality, on physical violence, family dynamics, being human, identity, understanding oneself. And I think what is so great about a film like Titan is the ambiguous nature. Like, George, I know I've told you this, but you need to watch it.
I know. I
there's
have to.
So much shit in this film where it's like it needs multiple watching. I think the best thing about it as well, if you go on like Titan I'm just checking now. So I'm going to read you guys the synopsis of Titan on both Google and Letterboxd because they're completely different. So this is the Google one. A woman with a titanium plate fitted in her head and a murderous intent on her mind embarks on a bizarre journey of identity and unconditional love when she's forced to go on the run. Okay, that's the Google one.
Normal.
The Letterboxd one is, following a series of unexplained crimes, a former firefighter is reunited with his son who has been missing for 10 years.
Those are two different movies.
Yeah, well, that's what you think, and then you go into it and you're like, "Oh my god, this is what I'm."
Isn't Titan the movie? Like, doesn't she fuck a car?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in terms of automobiles. So that is part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's so interesting because there's so much in the film that kind of puts you in the middle of nowhere, and it's so thrilling and it's almost comedic and stylish, but it's so outrageous with this imagery. There's some fucking gruesome shit in it, like really gruesome, but she tackles sexuality in a way that I've not really seen many filmmakers do. And definitely one of the most excited filmmakers coming out today. I don't know if she's got any more films coming up. I don't know if she's working on anything. I think she is. But I would definitely say I know Tyler's not here right now, but I'd definitely say to both of you, oh, wait, she's doing something with A24. Wow.
Whoa.
Interesting. Yeah. But yeah, George, I'd definitely say you need to watch both of them because you liked Bones and All, didn't you?
Yeah, I liked Bones and All. Wouldn't say I loved Bones and All. But yeah,
imagine Bones and All, but like worse. Better and more disgusting. Now, I think Raw's like, so Raw is, some people actually, they're actually the same rating on Letterboxd, both at 3.7. They're both of a polarizing nature because they are pretty grim in parts, but they have so much to say. I'd say start with Raw and then watch Titan, but it's one of those, there's some of those films where you need kind of multiple watches to really understand everything because, like I said, with the titles and with the headline, with the synopsis, when I first watched it with Anna, I was like, why is this two different films? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's literally the synopsis couldn't be any different, any more different. So yeah, I'd say obviously I'll stop talking about her there, but I think she is one of the most powerful and exciting, not just female filmmakers, but filmmakers working in the industry today. I will let George talk about Brandon Cronenberg because I've actually not seen Possessor, so I'm not too sure on that one. I did watch Infinity Pool, so I'm touching that. Yeah,
Brandon Cronenberg. I think at this point, 2 films in, I could just say I'm not a Brandon Cronenberg fan. Possessor was probably the most uncomfortable experience I've ever had with a movie because I watched it with my parents. And if you've seen Possessor,
did you watch it before or after Infinity Pool?
Before, yeah.
Okay,
I watched.
if it was after, I'd be like, that's your own
No,
fault for watching.
Have you watched the Cronenberg before Possessor, like a David?
Yeah. I watched
Why the
Possessor
fuck
when
would
it
you
like
switch it on?
came. I don't know. I saw the synopsis again. I watched Possessor like when it came out to streaming, like immediately. Like
When
that
did
was
it come out?
2020, I think it was a
Yep,
2020 film.
2020.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that.
But again, it's one of those things. Like here, let me read you the synopsis on Letterboxd. Like it's not a crazy thing. It's like a very it sounds like a cool movie. An elite corporate assassin uses brain implant technology to take control of other people's bodies to terminate high-profile targets. As she sinks deeper into her latest assignment, she becomes trapped inside the mind that threatens to obliterate her. Like that just sounds like a cool
honestly.
Yeah, it
That's
sounds like a
sick
cool psychological, action thriller type of movie. I was wrong, not that. So that was just a really uncomfortable experience. I find myself, and I say, and this includes Infinity Pool as well, and honestly, this can include some David Cronenberg films as well. I find they care a lot more about shock value than their narrative. And obviously, all the credit to them, they do put some shocking things on screen. We could even touch on Crimes of the Future. That's more shocking to me than it is like a movie I find myself caring about, whether it be like the characters or the setting or like the plot. So I just don't think I connect as well with the Cronenbergs, particularly Brandon, as much as I would like. Infinity Pool was one of those movies. Tyler, I think you said this about Nope and Us, where at the end of it, I was just kind of like, oh, that's it? Like, that's where the movie's going to end? So it was just kind of like an overwhelming feeling of, I don't know what word I'm looking for. But yeah, I don't know. I don't connect with the Cronenbergs as much as I think a lot of other people have. I used to blame it on the body horror aspect, but the more horror films I watch, the more I just don't think I mind the body horror. I just think it's their narratives. I think they lack the ability to tell a compelling story, and they care just a little bit more about that shock value than they do about their screenplays.
I will say, like, David is a little bit different because he's done so many films, and there are a lot. To be fair, there's actually a lot of his where I thought the same. There's a lot of the Cronenberg films which are not reliant on shock value, but there are some that certainly are, like you said. Infinity Pool was a weird film for me. Like I really liked the first kind of half an hour of it, but I got really bored, to be honest. And I just didn't care what was happening, apart from Mia Goth, but that's a different story, of course. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I think Infinity Pool is cool. I haven't seen Possessor. I think his style is definitely different from David in the way that he portrays things. But I think, again, it does heavily use this kind of shocking imagery. I will say some of the sequences in Infinity Pool with like the strobe lights and stuff, I think are in Possessor as well. They're really cool. But I just didn't care that much, to be honest, about anything that was going on. I'd be keen to see your thoughts on Infinity Pool, Tyler. I do think you'd kind of align with us. Oh, you've seen it. What did you think of it?
It's I still have it pulled up alongside Peele, Eggers, and Aster, so it'd be the lowest of all of them, but it's a 6.6, and I really liked it, and I do kind of want to rewatch it because I was intrigued by quite a bit from it. I don't know, it's super creative and interesting. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of it, didn't care for a lot of aspects of it, so it's it's a 3.5 barely for me, but I liked it. I mean, a big thing I think for why I rated it so high is Mia Goth's performance is incredible. Like, she's so commanding on the screen, so terrifying, and Alexander Skarsgård's a nice treat in there as well. And there's some fun scenes for sure. A lot of fun montage scenes of like them doing the crimes or like, them getting devolving down into this crazy world of debauchery that they're in. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it wasn't amazing for me. Although my friend really loves it. It's one of his favorite movies because he doesn't watch a ton of movies. I'm trying to get him into it. And when it came out, I paid for his movie ticket. I was like, because I saw it and I was like, what the fuck was this movie? So I was like, I'll pay for your movie ticket. Just go watch this movie. I just want your thoughts on it. And then he did, and he ended up loving it. I was like, okay, I actually didn't. I was kind of hoping he would come out and why the fuck you make me watch that. But
I know a few people who really, really liked Infinity Pool. Like, it's one of their favorites of the year. I get it, but it's just I don't know. There wasn't really much I could latch on to. I am keen to watch Possessor though, because I think that sounds quite interesting. But again, like George said, maybe it's actually not that interesting. Maybe the title, the synopsis, just makes you think it's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. It's not someone I'm like crazy about tackling their filmography or anything like that. I think Julia Ducournau, whatever. I think I'm much more excited about her. because if Brandon Cronenberg is anything like David, it's going to be a very tumultuous relationship between us two. It's going to be a very up and down relationship. I'm not sure I'm ready for. So I'm much more excited about her than I am with him. And I think body horror as well. Like, it either really works for me, or it really doesn't. I either care a lot or I don't care. Crimes of the Future, I don't care. Titan, I really do care. Very back and forth. It depends what else is going on in the film. It depends how much in the narrative I'm interested in. But body horror is very. I love or hate. It's very much that kind of aspect. I'm sure it's the same for George as well.
What are you guys' kind of overall thoughts on the current state of horror movies? Because I feel like we're in a very much an era where I feel like most of the horror movies coming out either feel like they're franchise films continuing or reboots, or they're A24 horror. And I guess I'll say A24 in quotes, because even the movies that aren't A24 horror, I feel like are so inspired by A24. Like Barbarian could easily be an A24 film. Like, it just feels like one. It's got naked old women. That's A24 horror written all over it. And I just feel like those are the two kind of polarizing styles we have right now. It's like either franchises, reboots, or this kind of A24 horror that's not super jump scare heavy, but it's heavily reliant on deeper themes and deeper meanings rather than paper thin characters, jump scares every 2 seconds. A lot more narrative and story driven than they are just purely about being scared. Like we saw with Talk to Me, which is an A24 movie. Like, a lot of these movies have scares in them, but they're mostly about, trauma or depression or grief, or there's a lot more, which I mean, other jump scare filled horror movies can have those, but I feel like we're in a different age that really kind of started with The Witch in 2015. I'm sure there's stuff before then I could think of, but I feel like The Witch was a big turning point, that a lot of movies are kind of in a new age of horror. What are you guys' kind of thoughts on modern horror?
I think for me, it's this. I mean, horror's always been the same. For every good horror film, there's 20 bad ones. Like, realistically, it's always been like that. But we're in a position now where it's like, it's weird. Most horror films that come out now, I just don't care about. I just have no interest in. I think, obviously, we'll go on to this. I know we're speaking about this after, but a lot of the horror now is these franchise reboots, because they know they'll make money. They push them out, and again, things like Megan and stuff like that, and it really is a rare occasion where something will catch me off guard now and I'll really enjoy it. The two primary ones I'm thinking at the moment are probably Barbarian from last year and Talk to Me, just because they kind of stretch out the lane a bit. They have a lot more to say, but I am kind of like, I don't know, there's not been many horrors in the past few years that I've loved, but when I do, they seem to be ones I really latch onto, like Hereditary, like A Witch. But I'm definitely lower on modern horror than most, I would say. Like, I know George is higher on modern horror than I am.
Quickly, one other thing I forgot to mention. I feel like Blumhouse is also another. So there's A24 horror, there's franchise, and there's like the Blumhouse horror is another kind of flavor, which are kind of just like the lamer horror movies. I don't know. I'm not a Blumhouse guy.
I will not be talking negative about them, because I will be seeing them tomorrow.
No, Seth's a big Blumhouse guy. It's only me.
I'm a big Blumhouse guy. They produced Get Out, didn't they? So, that's all you need, really. But yeah, I agree. Anyway, I agree.
Yeah, I think for any genre, it's hit or miss. Like, I could sit here and tell you that I hate these, these reboots franchises, these remake franchises. But then I'll also tell you I've really enjoyed Scream 5 and 6. But I hate, but like, I've hated Halloween Kills. I've hated Halloween Ends. The new Texas Chainsaw Massacre sucks. And then on the flip side, I'll also tell you I love these new IPs. I love the Get Outs of the world. I love the Hereditaries in the world. But again, on the flip side, I don't really love Beau is Afraid. I don't really love Skinamarink. These are brand new IPs. These are brand new, visionary directors that are just kind of showing us something new in the horror game. And in my mind, even they've missed. So it's a very odd topic. I think horror, it's just a bit all over the place for me. Obviously, we get fantastic horror movies, just this year. Talk to Me. For me, Scream 6. For me, Evil Dead Rise. I fucking loved both of those movies. But then on the flip side, over the last couple of years, we have gotten the Skinamarink of the world, the Texas Chainsaw Massacres of the world, the Halloween Ends of the world. So like Seth said, for every good horror movie, there's a couple of bad ones. But yeah, I think, every filmmaker we just talked about, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, Jordan Peele, I'll even toss Alex Garland in there. I think we're in some fantastic hands when it comes to horror, and I think this new age of horror.
Garland.
What?
Look, Alex Garland. Not with Alex Garland, we're not. That's not.
What are you talking about?
He did Men. He did
wrote
Men.
28 Days Later.
He wrote 28 Days Later.
Yeah, that was 2002, bro.
He did Annihilation.
Annihilation and Ex Machina. they're good. I like them a lot, but I am judging off the
Very good.
recent. Men was
That's
tone
fair.
deaf. Dog
Men,
shit.
piss poor. I completely agree. But no, I like that these. I don't know. I feel like horror has evolved. Obviously, the 70s and the 80s brought us a lot of horror slashers, a lot of these campy horror films that can come off funny at times. And now we've kind of moved to the 2000s where we got more jump scare horror, more of the supernatural horror, and now we're in an era where we're getting more psychological horror. So I think we're just kind of like gradually progressing in horror. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's obviously remains in the eye of the beholder. I love it. I love the kind of horror movies we're getting where they kind of make you think. They're touching on these hard themes of grief and loneliness. They're not relying on jump scares to scare you. They're relying on their psychological tendencies to fuck you up, which I personally very much enjoy.
I will say I'm kind of glad that we're there was a point in kind of the early to mid 2010s when Insidious and Conjuring first came about where it was like every film would be like a possession or a Conjuring, like, and it was a supernatural film, and they were getting really tedious because everyone, like, I don't know if you guys saw Pray for the Devil, you probably didn't, from last year. One of the worst films of the year for me because it was essentially just, it felt like I was back in 2012 watching a reboot of the same franchise over and over again. So I'm kind of glad we're out of that phase. And at least, like, I will say with like Men or Skinamarink or The Outwater I mentioned earlier, at least we're seeing new things now rather than getting the same repeated possession trope or supernatural trope. We're getting fresh things like Talk to Me, like Barbarian, which I do really like. But yeah, the issue with horror in general is that just I think horror for me is like the worst genre in terms of consistent films from what I watch anyway. There's just a lot of, because it's easy because horror is the least consistent franchise because they know whatever they put out will make money. That's just it. And because it will make money, they know they want to put, a lot of studios know they want to put as much effort into it because horror makes money. So in this point in time, I just think we're getting a lot of shit, but there's some good new stuff as well. So I'm not complaining fully.
So what are all the franchise reboots that have happened? So obviously we had Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We have the Scream franchise still going on. We have the Saw franchise. The Exorcist getting 3 more films.
Halloween. Did you say Halloween?
Halloween. The Evil Dead franchise continues. Final Destination. We're in another film from that franchise.
We're still in like the Annabelle Conjuring universe, technically.
We are still in that.
Yeah, of course. Insidious.
Yeah.
Insidious.
The Insidious universe.
Wow, every fucking
Megan is becoming a franchise because they said like there's 2 more.
I mean, Exorcist is a confirmed trilogy, isn't it now? Which is like a Halloween one.
No,
what are they doing with that?
We're probably missing some, but there's a lot of franchise reboots.
And how many of them? How many of them have come back in a good way? Okay, so you got Scream, which I think we all like to hear. You got Evil Dead, which I think is one of the most consistent franchises ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Halloween. I think 2018 Halloween was actually all right. It's fine. And then that fell off a cliff. The Exorcist, well, I haven't seen it yet. The Exorcist, I think, will be perfect. I don't know about you boys, but I'm really excited for that. What were the other ones? So Saw obviously came back in quite a good way, a surprisingly good way. What am I missing? What did we mention? Insidious, I thought
Texas
was terrible.
Chainsaw Massacre was bad.
Oh, fuck, man. Yeah, that was terrible. Insidious, I thought, The Last Key, I think it was, George. Oh, no, so the Insidious, what was the one that just came out? I didn't really like
the
that.
Red Door.
The Red Door.
The Red Door, yeah. The last
last year we got a new Hellraiser movie. Forgot about that one.
Oh, I didn't watch that. I didn't watch that.
I forgot that was a thing, honestly.
Shit, yeah, there was a new Hellraiser film last year. Did that do well?
I don't remember hearing anyone talk about it after it initially came out. So at least it didn't have staying power, but it might have made money. I'm sure Terrifier will continue being a franchise forever because
that's confirmed. They've confirmed that 3 is in the making already. Or like the script's underway or whatever. So Terrifier, obviously, because that makes
last year
shit
the Orphan had a sequel.
Yeah, Seth, you know what remake we got last year? Goodnight Mommy.
Oh shit! Yeah, that was on Prime.
I forgot about that one. That shit was doo-doo.
Right. Well, this is the point I'm making. Like, I thought we'd go into this and there'd be like 4, but really there's like 10 plus because
pretty much every iconic horror movie has been rebooted recently, or like a sequel, legacy sequel's been.
It's hard to think of an iconic horror film that hasn't been realistically. Do you know what I mean? Which is isn't really the place you want to be.
Yeah,
like fucking. I was going to say The Thing, but The Thing go on, didn't it?
The Thing got a remake too.
That was
Like,
in
shit,
what, 2013.
Well, the thing was a remake, to be fair. So,
I mean, The Shining. Obviously, then they had what's the name of that other Stephen King
Doctor
novel?
Sleep. Doctor Sleep. Yeah.
Which,
Still
to
haven't
be
seen
fair,
that.
wasn't. They were separate novels, so it's not like they just like remade a movie or
No.
added a sequel for no reason.
Have you seen Doctor Sleep though?
No, but
I
it's like
haven't.
based on a book, so it's like at least
No,
like,
it's yeah, but I get what you're saying, but it's like the last hour of that film is like, do you remember how good The Shining was? And it's like, oh my god, like what are we doing, man? I know I'm a minority with that, but yeah,
But-
it's every horror franchise.
the Scream franchise. I think is the
28
best.
days later, they're making a new
tw-
one, aren't
yeah,
they? They're making a new
is
one.
it 28 years later now? I mean, naturally, I feel like
What?
that'd be what they're gonna call
I-
it. But yeah, I did
Yeah,
see
yeah,
it because they confirmed
It's
that.
confirmed, yeah. So they're making another one of them.
I think
Crazy.
Scream is the best franchise in terms of like, if a Scream's coming out, I know I'm gonna like it. I'm not gonna love it probably, but there's very
agree.
unlikely that I'm gonna not like the movie. So they're all the
Scream and
same
Evil
formula,
Dead.
but it's a formula that works. It's like a Scooby-Doo story where at the end there's a big unmasking. Who was it?
Yeah, I agree.
Sometimes predictable, sometimes not so much, but still a fun little ride of movies that I feel like anytime a Scream's coming out, I'm like, I'll go see it and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think that and Evil Dead for me. I'll always know that I like the films, even though they stay at the same template, they stay at the same design. I'll always like them. I think it is impressive when you got a horror franchise with 5+ films and everyone has not.
See, but Evil Dead has like revitalized itself. I think that's why it's like remaining so fresh and so well received. Because like the original trilogy is obviously like, I mean, Tyler, you touch on it because you're not the horror guy. It's not scary, right? It's not a scary movie.
Not
There's
at all.
scary elements to it, but it's more corny. It's more campy. And then the 2013 movie, that's straight gore.
It's the same template though. It's
Yeah,
the same,
yeah.
thing,
Same story,
you know what I mean?
exact same. If I were to write a 2-sentence synopsis of the original trilogy and the two new movies, it'd be the exact same thing. But like the two new movies are gore, blood porn, whereas the original trilogy is very corny and campy. So I think the Evil Dead franchise has just done such a good job at like keeping itself fresh. They didn't just recycle that old material and give us like more goofy movies.
Is it surprising to you that Scream has done the exact opposite of that, whereas Scream has literally
And it's
stayed
been
the
so
same,
successful.
and it's still been good every
Yeah,
film. Other than,
it's so wild.
what was
Other
the
than
Scream that wasn't very
2.
good? Two,
Two.
yeah, 2 wasn't great, but
Mhm.
I still don't think it was bad. But like since then, I've enjoyed at least every single one, which is wild considering they
Yeah.
all follow
Mhm.
the same
Same
pattern. So it's-
formula. But
Yeah,
they keep
even
it
more
they keep it unique with the kills. They keep it they're good at like keeping you on your toes and guessing. Like it hasn't become predictable.
And now they switched locations to keep it fresh.
Yeah,
too.
now they're switching locations. They got a new cast, new Scream Queens. Like they're doing a good job. This is what the Halloween franchise I think failed at, especially in Halloween Ends. They tried to do something unique with that new character and Laurie Strode's
Corey?
granddaughter. Yeah,
No.
Corey and Laurie Strode's granddaughter. They tried to like do something new, but it just didn't work. Like they did
Yeah.
a
I will
poor
say that,
job at keeping it fresh.
Scream as well, like as a franchise, they're just really good at marketing their films.
Mhm.
They
Oh, yeah.
market the.
I mean,
their
the
marketing
posters
is
for the last
fantastic.
movie were they had like
The
25
posters so
posters
good.
that
They
were.
was good.
You could have said 25 of them were of like maybe your favorite poster of the year. Like there's so many amazing
Like
ones.
the Scream. I mean, Tyler, you'll know this more than me. Did the last one do well, box office wise?
Yeah,
Did it? Okay, I actually didn't know. I've not seen the numbers for that. but
I
they just keep it
loved
fresh and stuff.
I loved the latest trailer for Scream because Samara Weaving was all over it and people were like, "Oh, I'm so excited for a new Scream Queen." And I'm like, if you don't think she's the opening death of this movie, you've never seen a Scream movie in your entire life.
One
Like
of the coolest opening deaths. as
Yeah,
well.
it was like a shot of her in the alley on the phone and she's like turning around and I'm like, she's dead in 6 minutes. She's getting clipped. And people were like, new Scream Queen unlocked. I'm like, go watch all the previous Screams and you'll
Yeah.
know exactly what's about to happen to this woman.
Also, Addison Rae, new Scream Queen. We said, you see that video on Twitter?
Thanksgiving. Or-
I didn't watch the
Yeah.
trailer. I still didn't watch the trailer.
I saw it before.
Did you not
Saw
see the
10.
video of her like?
I saw
screaming
that
at
video,
the
yeah,
stars,
because I think Cam tweeted it out. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he did,
I did not see the trailer, but I did see that video for actually screaming.
Yeah, and if we recorded this episode a week ago before Saw 10 came out, I would have been like, that's a franchise that's consistently bad. Like, it's gotten so bad since the first one. There's a couple that are like, okay, but then Saw 10 comes out, and I haven't stopped thinking about that. Like, I really, really, really like Saw 10.
Yeah,
So
it is weird how
it's interesting. They like were the most unexpected for me to revitalize a franchise that I just thought was so dead in the water. I think it does really help that they like took years off as opposed to the back-to-back years. But
so you watched Halloween Ends, didn't you, Tyler? Yeah, you did. Yeah.
How is that the one from last year?
Yeah, the recent one.
No, I have not. But I know
okay.
I've seen clips because Cam always
loved
tweeting those clips.
Well, so like George, for example, like what he was saying about Halloween is where they tried to do a new thing, it went completely haywire, and it just wasn't successful. Saw did the exact opposite of that, where they brought it back down to the very fucking basic formula of why people enjoyed the original Saw film so much, hence why it's so successful. So they did the exact opposite of Halloween Ends, and what do you know? It's a pretty good film and a successful film, probably in most people's eyes as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But one thing I can say for certain is that franchise reboots of any film franchise, but horror especially, are not going away anytime soon. I'm sure the rest of the 2020 decade will be littered with franchise reboots and legacy sequels. So not going anywhere anytime soon. But we'll transition into our top 10 modern horror films of all time. There's going to be a ranking, and we're going to do the same old way we always do. We'll do our 10 through 6s, and then we'll go one by one, 5 through 1. So I'd imagine we all have our list ready to go. Let's start off with any honorable mentions, because I'll go first. So honorable mentions, purely not because they missed the ranking, but because, like I mentioned to you guys before we recorded, horror is a genre that there's a lot of movies that maybe aren't primarily a horror, but that's a secondary genre. And I kept my list to just primary genre horrors. So these 4 movies I'm about to list as honorable mentions would have made my top 10, but they're primarily a different genre. So I'm not going to include them. And that would include Bones and All. You guys know how much I love that movie more than most people, but I really enjoyed that. Searching.
Has that got horror on it? Body horror, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a romance horror. And then Searching is like a thriller, drama, horror, which I really enjoyed. Searching. The Menu, also more of a thriller, but it is classified on IMDb secondly as a horror. And then Under the Skin, which is, I don't even know what genre Under the Skin primarily would be, but it has horror as its second genre.
Mystery horror?
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, never mind. Mystery is the main one, and then horror is on there, and then sci-fi as well. So those are the 4 that would have made my top 10 if I did any movie that had horror attached to it, but I only did primary, so those are my honorable mentions. Whoever's ready can go next.
So I got a few honorable mentions. So I went on like IMDb as well. I went on, but if they had it even as secondary on both IMDb and Letterboxd, kind of counted it. So the ones that won't be making it, Black Swan, I do think is primarily thriller. That probably would have made my 10. Also, Take Shelter as well probably would have made my 10. Train to Busan probably would have made my 10. That could be argued, actually. I'm going to say no for now because I've not put it in. And then also, what's it called? In fact, that's probably it. Those 3.
George, any honorable mentions, or are you good to go?
Yeah, I have a few. I mean, I'm going to do the same thing you guys did. Obviously, like if you look at my ranking on Letterboxd, like I include Black Swan, I include like Mandy, but because I'm gonna go primary genre is gonna be horror here, so I'm gonna toss Black Swan in my honorable mentions. I'm also gonna toss Annihilation in my honorable mentions. And then my other honorable mentions, Mandy, and that's it. I'll shout out it. I'll shout out A Quiet Place.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's dive into our ranking. So we'll go 10 through 6, and then just read them off. So I'll go first here. So coming number 10 for me is David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future. And then at number, which I know I enjoyed more than most people, but still really did. Number 9 for me is Nope, Jordan Peele. Number 8 is Midsummer. Number 7 is Pearl. And number 6 is Beau is Afraid.
Wow. I did not know you thought that highly of Pearl or Crimes of the Future. Honestly.
I mean, you got to think I've seen so many less horrors.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
But still, like number 10, like Crimes of the Future, like let's see. I don't know what I have. I think it's like it's a 4-star for me. So it's not like it's not like last week where I'm going to like bad.
I have 4 stars in mine.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
So I'll go. Okay, so my 10 is Kill List, which I think is a horror, George. Horror.
I would call it, I would definitely call it horror.
My 9 is the first Conjuring, a very, very good film. My 8 is the horror comedy One Cut of the Dead. George, you've seen that, obviously.
I have, yes.
My 7 is, this is a bit of like a different one. It's I Saw the Devil, which I think George and I spoke about before. So I did check on IMDb and Wikipedia also lists as a thriller horror, so I'm going to take it. I Saw the Devil. And at 6, I'm going to go another one that George has seen, Shinya Sakamoto's Kotoko, which is the horror is the primary genre on that, which is, just a whirlwind of anxiety. So I'll go with that as my 10 to 6.
I'm going to give one more shout out to Cabin in the Woods. That was originally my number 10, but then I completely forgot about another film that I'm about to mention. So my number 10 now is Jordan Peele's Nope. The movie just caters to me. Science fiction horror, a lot of cool like nods to the past. Number 9, one of my favorite horror comedies out there, Ready or Not. I've been preaching that movie forever. I fucking love that thing. Number 8, a movie we just talked about pretty extensively, Robert Eggers' The Witch. Number 7 belongs to The Conjuring. And number 6, the film I had originally forgot off my list because I was thinking maybe it's not a horror, maybe it is a horror, but Seth included it. So my number 6 is I Saw the Devil.
All right. Now we'll get into our number 5 movies. For me, again, a movie we've already talked about extensively on here, so no need to go too deeply into it, but Hereditary, terrifying, layered with symbolism and deeper meanings, a fun movie, not only for the scares and the thrills, but a fun movie to sink your teeth into after it's over and read deeper into some of what was going on. I'm sure it's a movie that benefits from a rewatch as well. But yeah, number 5 for me is Ari Aster's debut in Hereditary.
Number 5 for me is Robert Eggers' The Witch. No, it's not. Number 5 for me is Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. That's what it is. I mean, again, thriller, horror. It's a weird one. I'd probably say it's a bit of both. I think The Lighthouse is absolutely fantastic in pretty much every way. I think it works as just an ambiguous, dark mystery that unravels itself perfectly throughout. So much rewatch value. So much you can go into with it, and I think Patterson and Willem Dafoe are just 2 sublime performances, and probably some of the best performances of, was it 2019 or 18? Remind me.
19.
Wow, that's 19 was actually a really good year. Thinking about it's crazy. So my number 5 is The Lighthouse.
My number 5 is David Robert Mitchell's It Follows. And this is just one of my favorite displays of suspense. It's a very slow burn, but it's just infused with so many like creepy sequences, so many just glorious horror shots that I just consistently think about. I absolutely love like this unique take on sex and horror. It's a very interesting blend that I don't think we've ever seen before, and I think David Robert Mitchell just does such a good job at turning it into this incredibly suspenseful and very, unnerving experience.
There is one scene, George, in It Follows, which did scare me. Do you know what scene that is?
Got to be the one where like she's in the doorway and the guy walks into the doorway.
The fucking tall guy.
Yeah, that shit fucks me. That shit is so. One of my favorite shots in like any horror movie ever is towards the end when they're like in the pool area at I guess their high school. There's one shot where like half the screen is the pool. It's like you're looking down. Half the screen is the pool. Half the screen is like the tile, and you just see her hand slowly moving towards. I was like, that shot. That's it. That's the entire shot, and it just fucking creeped me out like crazy.
I do need to rewatch it. I'd be keen to see what Tyler's thoughts are on that film. Actually, I think Tyler, you could either give it like a 1-star or a 4-star. Honestly,
that's one that was kind of added to Tyler's book report last week. But kind of as we mentioned, there's a Friday right now we're filming this, and we normally film on weekends. So the only days that have passed since we last recorded are weekdays, which I'm working, so didn't have like time on the weekends. And like I mentioned, I've been watching so much Love Island because I'm working. So like I can't, like I'm not, that would be just unfair. Like you guys tell me, here's a horror you should watch. Okay, I'm gonna throw it on while I'm working. Like that wouldn't really be fair to the spirit of this. So I think what I'm gonna do is next week I'll be reviewing them all because I'm gonna get this whole weekend to watch them and get caught up to speed. So if you remember that from last week, that's kind of waiting for the weekend so I can watch them, and I'll review them next week so I can watch them without having to multitask, which wouldn't be fair to anyone. But number 4 for me is from last year, actually, The Black Phone. Riley and I saw it together. Yeah, I know we're higher on it than most people. We had a really fun time with The Black Phone.
I didn't expect that.
We drove home and we like talked about it extensively. Like we were talking so much. I filmed the TikTok review of it and she was like in it. We like kind of reviewed it together. It was like way early in my TikTok days because it was like early-ish 2022. So that was a fun review. But it was one we just watched and then we just kind of sat out on our back porch. We were talking about like the lore and the history behind the grabber and some of the other kids and like there's some deeper stuff we were trying to dive into that we just had a really fun time with. And then the movie itself was a fun little movie, and Ethan Hawke in a very interesting Ethan Hawke role that was fun to see, which I still don't know if that was him or not under the mask, but he was jacked if he was, or he was just like a big guy. So I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to think Ethan Hawke got a little beefed up because the thing is he wasn't like shredded. I think he just like worked out a lot plus like ate a lot of food because he was like strong, but like, not like super lean. But yeah, we really enjoyed The Black Phone.
Interesting. Is it me? Oh shit.
Yeah, you.
It's interesting, just staring at you two. So my number 4 is The Witch. We've just spoke about it extensively. I don't need to go into too much detail. I think right now it is my favorite over The Lighthouse. Honestly, I'm so back and forth on the two. I'll probably say The Witch just edges it because I've just obviously watched it, but I do need to rewatch The Lighthouse. But yeah, The Witch is my number 4.
My number 4, peak cinema, Malignant. I fucking love Malignant. This movie just oozes cool. It's so unique. It has an entire fucking Matrix sequence in the police station.
That is a good sequence.
One of like my favorite twists ever. Like it's right there with I Am Your Father, shit like that. It's just such a good, unpredictable. Fucking, it's corny. It's campy at times. The acting is over.
It's a you film.
Yeah, the acting is very overacted at times, but I don't know. I just love and adore this movie. Every time I watch it, I'm just like, oh, it's so cool. So yeah, Malignant is my number 4.
So Seth, you don't like? What do you rate Malignant? You don't like it?
Like a half star.
You're such a bum. You're such a bum.
No, I don't. I rate like a 2.5, I think. I don't hate it. There's scenes I like. There's a really cool Matrix fight sequence with a head. That shit's weird, man. But I don't know. I wasn't keen on it, but I think it's very much a George Alex Coleman like film. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure Alex rates it even higher than you. I think you might have it.
He gives it a 5 out of 5. I give it a 4.5.
I get it. I do get it, but I just it's I do want to rewatch it. I think.
Well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you just didn't understand it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But I think I will say this is not related to Malignant. I do actually really want to watch It Follows. I have a sneaky suspicion.
Think you will like that movie a lot. I really do.
3, so I still like it, but I guess I do think I like it more.
My number 3 is a movie that when I saw it on my spreadsheet, when I filtered it, I thought my spreadsheet was lying because I was like, it made me a little depressed. I was like, man, the 2010s were like a long time ago, like early 2010s, like 2010, 2011, like way longer ago than I thought. Because this movie I for sure thought was like 2004. But Scream 4 is my number 3. My favorite Scream movie.
Shit.
And that just does not feel like a movie that came out in the 2010s. Like that's just, we're getting old, boys.
Yeah. That's
Scream 4 was my favorite Scream. I did have a blast with that. I love Scream always has iconic opening scenes, but I think it's Hayden Panettiere or no, Kirsten Bell. I know is in the first scene. I think she gets murked off in the first scene.
Scream 4 was in the 2010s.
Yeah, I know, dude. I double taped as well. 2011 Scream 4, but Scream 4 is my favorite Scream. I love that whole franchise in general.
I did not know that.
Scream 4 is number 1 for me.
Wow.
Oh, shit, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
All right. Does not feel like that's 2011, but
nah.
Yeah, like 4 years before The Witch, Scream 4 came out. That doesn't compute in my brain.
No, that doesn't compute in my mind. That's weird. So my number 3 is a film we've already spoken about. It's Ari Aster's Hereditary. One of the best films that not only tackles family dynamics and grief, but just an abundance of terror. One of the films that truly scared me on a first watch after having so many horrors not do. A film I've watched over and over again, and I think probably Ari Aster's most visually pleasing film, I'd actually say, over Midsommar, which might surprise you. And also, I remember being in the cinema and watching the fucking head come off, like watching the scene where they're going, that shit fucking, do you know what I mean? Like when I saw it the first time, I was like, Jesus Christ, man. I think crazy. And I think Tony Collette I love as well. And also Oh man, what's the kid's name again? Well, not kid, but
The naked
something
man,
Wolf.
Alex Wolff.
Alex Wolf.
He was great, and also the dad. I just think really amazing.
Dad
film,
was
one of the best
underrated.
horrors.
Not enough people talk about the dad's performance, but he was.
I actually think that I think all three of them. I think even the woman, the fucking weirdo. I think they were all really, really great, and I think it worked. Everything worked to a T, and I think it was a perfect film for them to be involved in. So yeah, my number 3 is Hereditary.
George.
Yeah, my number 3, another movie we've talked about a little bit on this pod today, Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. Technically, I think this is one of the most brilliant horror films out there. It has some of my favorite shots in horror ever. It's also just like a very haunting, but like oddly intimate take on isolation and loneliness that I just find weird comfort in. And obviously, I love Pattinson a ton. I love Willem Dafoe a ton, and I've been advocating a ton. I don't know if both of them or one of them would have been nominated in Best Supporting or Best Leading Actor, but I think either way they should have won, in my opinion. Especially if it was Best Supporting Actor.
You've met both of them as well, haven't you? But actually, no, you've seen Willem Dafoe.
I've seen Willem Dafoe.
Yeah,
I did not introduce myself. The same night I met Robert Pattinson. But yeah, Lighthouse, my number 3. Robert Eggers, obviously, we talked about a ton on this podcast, and I love the guy.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 for me is also a film from last year. Again, my horror bag is not nearly that deep, and I just started watching horror films or just films in general, or no, just horror films mostly last year and this year. So, watched it with Riley.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. What's her name again? Is it Micah Monroe?
Micah Monroe
Is great.
It follows.
One of my favorite final shots. Not just
so good.
Any movie. One of my favorite final shots in any movie ever. The whole movie just great suspense. I forgot what the name of the
very Hitchcockian, if I would say.
I definitely can see the influence. It's like the guy's name Gore Burnman or something. That's just like the name in my head. Like
in
the
real life,
name like that. Who's the guy who plays like the killer? Like not, I guess. Yeah, the killer. Obviously, he definitely kills someone.
For
very
sure.
Obvious. Yeah, but yeah, he was great and it's super menacing. And when you have like a relationship dynamic like Micah Monroe and her husband have, you always need the husband's actor behind him to be just hateable, so hateable that you just like are just getting enraged every time he's speaking. And definitely, I hated that guy so much. So well done. I know Seth wasn't as high on it, but I loved Watcher. Seth, number 2.
My number 2 is Jordan Peele's Get Out. A brilliant piece of social and political commentary, one of the best debuts. We've spoken about this over and over again. Ton of rewatch value, a perfect script. Number 2 is Jordan Peele's Get Out. So we spoke about it earlier, so I won't go into it too much. But yeah, that's my number 2. I think it's been around there for a while. It was actually, I remember one of the first 5 stars I actually gave on Letterboxd as well. And it still is now. We're into my, this is into my 5 stars. The top 2 are both 5 stars for me as well.
Okay. I thought that was going to be your number 1. I'm forgetting what your number 1
Yeah,
was,
so am I now, honestly.
George, what's your number 2?
Yeah, my number 2, and my top 3 are 5 stars. Everything else is 4.5. So The Lighthouse was a 5 star as well. My number 2 is Hereditary. My favorite, I guess, psychological horror movie out there. I would edge The Shining just a little bit in terms of quality, but I think, rewatch value, I find myself rewatching Hereditary a lot more than The Shining. I think Hereditary is despicable. I think it's disgusting. I think it's just everything I look for in a horror movie. It frightens me. It makes me sad. But it also just has such an interesting look at family values, relationship values. So it's one of those, just like we were talking about earlier, it's like an evolution of horror where it's not relying on jump scares. It's not a slasher movie or anything. It's genuinely just a great screenplay, just infused with so much just disturbing imagery, and I just can't help myself but just really, really enjoy my time with this movie every time I watch it, as fucked up as that sounds.
Yeah, my number 1's Get Out. Don't need to harp on it too much. We talked about it a lot. Pretty self-explanatory. We're all very high on it, and it's number 1 for me, and I think it is for George too, but we'll wait and see because Seth is next.
True.
Yeah, so no idea what my number 1 is.
I think I'm blanking.
I think I'm just blanking on it.
We spoke about it on this episode.
It's not Malignant, right?
Conjuring 2. I was like a 2.5. No, it's not Malignant. It's we spoke about it on this episode.
Titan. Titan.
There you
Oh,
go.
to
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Right.
It would have been, so that would have been like 3, but obviously I rewatched it this week and it's really jumped up in my all-time favorites list. Just had, like I said earlier, just a brilliant piece of showcasing, finding oneself, identity, sexuality, visceral, gruesome violence, multiple films in one. It's relentless. It's unapologetically weird. A film that I urge everyone to watch. Not for everyone, don't get me wrong. It's very polarizing, and I know people don't like it, but that is my number one body horror, or horror since 2010.
My number one, Get Out. Just like Tyler said, no need to harp on it too much. It's like I said earlier, it's one of my favorite screenplays in horror. It's one of my favorite screenplays in general. I think it's just such a unique and fresh take on this genre. Crazy directorial debut. So yeah, Get Out, my number one. Don't need to talk too much about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are our top 10 rankings for each of us of the best or our favorite modern horror movies from 2010 or beyond. So I hope you enjoyed that little ranking and discussion of kind of modern horrors in general. We have one more thing to do before we're going to wrap up here, and that's the scariest and most horrific thing we'll ever talk about on this podcast today, even though it's a horror episode, and that is a Disney Plus TV show finale, and that is Ahsoka, which, Disney Plus, always scary when it comes to their finales and how good they're going to be. So, George, I want to hear your thoughts on Ahsoka because I know you did finish it. Cam did as well, and I will say Cam was not very high on it. And
I've seen people love and hate this. It's a really
which
weird.
is so weird
phenomenon.
that Cam was like really nice.
Yeah,
Right?
he's like positive with these things.
Yeah, so I'm interested to hear what George's thoughts were.
I tweeted out that because this was during the film festival when I was in a screening when the final episode of Ahsoka dropped. So after the movie ended, I opened up Twitter to just so much negativity. And I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't even bother. Maybe I shouldn't even watch it. But then I was curious because a lot of people kept commenting like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then Alex Coleman commented, bro, you're going to hate it. So I kind of watched it just to see where I fell. Closer to Cam, unfortunately. I didn't like it. I feel like there was not a lot of resolution. I feel like compared to episodes 4 through 6, everything died down in quality from the fight choreography to the set designs to the cinematography. It felt like in that last episode, everyone involved just lost inspiration, or they just got tired and didn't care to give us a proper ending. It was one of those finales that the show did such a good job at redeeming itself, in a sense where, like I said when I spoke to Cam about it, episodes 1 through 3 not fantastic. Everything after, excluding the finale, it was just a constant build of just great stuff. Like everything just kept adding on top of everything, from the introductions of new and old characters, to the story, to our personal connection with Ahsoka and everything she's kind of dealing with and going through. Obviously bringing back Anakin in a very respectful way, which is something we don't see happen every so often with the return of legacy characters. This show is trending in the upward direction, and then the finale just felt like a cliff. It felt like they just kind of lost that spark. They forgot what made the previous 5 episodes just so fantastic. So yeah, I think overall Ahsoka as a show, he definitely clicked X on the wrong tab. I'll bet my life. Seth.
Well, we'll
just
find out
X.
if he pops back in, but we're done with him anyways.
Yeah, true. But yeah, as the show as a whole, I wasn't too impressed. I dropped my ranking of all of the live action Star Wars show. So at number 1, I have Andor. I still think that's the best of the bunch. I have Mandalorian season 1 at number 2, Mandalorian season 2 at number 3, and then I have Ahsoka at number 4. So it kind of falls right in the middle of the 7 shows or the 7 seasons. Obi-Wan at 5, Mando 3 at 6, and Book of Boba Fett at 7. So kind of all over the place in terms of quality on Ahsoka, but there were things I absolutely loved and adored. There were things I think they could have definitely done better, the finale being the main instance. Cam, I'm sure you're listening. We can go a little more in depth on that final episode when you return, because I do have some thoughts for you.
Yeah, I actually want to test if Cam is listening. So Cam, I feel like comments out of solidarity, but Cam, if you're listening to this right now, right here, just comment your favorite number. Just not only digits. Just what's your favorite number? Comment it. I want to see if you're listening this far in the episode. because that does do it for today's episode. So Seth, for the audio listeners, the reason we kind of made a joke and paused is because he just dropped out of the call and he probably clicked X on accident, but we're done with him anyways, because we're just going to read off our executive producers. So, of course, check out our Patreon in the description down below. We have tons of awesome perks down there, so go check them all out. The Discord is by far the most fun perk, I'd say, for most people, most patrons. They just absolutely have a blast. But for our elite patrons, the executive producers, we have a huge, massive thank you that this episode would not have been possible without 7mod Jeffy, Alexander Biscardi, Ben Hansey, Cody Whitney, Connor Connaughton, Dakota Buckner, Dean Conomenidis, Dylan Chip, Ferdinando Four, Jimmy O'Connor, Jordan Gagg, Josh Hines, Casper Lundberg, Luke Deerhog, M. Bate, Reese David, Remy Walker, Rocco 1.0, Robert Leo Zlausen, Sean Morales, Stefan Johnson, Trey Artsy, Will Kim, and Zach Graves. Shout out to all of you. Of course, on Thursday this week, we're going to be dropping our real quick draft. This week is going to be drafting things to survive the zombie apocalypse. And you're going to have to vote on who's going to win. Basically, the winner of the draft basically just means that they're going to be the most likely to survive the longest based on a question we were asked last week on our Q&A. So it kind of goes in well with that. So check out our Q&A episode as well that released this past Wednesday to see who we think would last the longest in a zombie apocalypse. And then this was also inspired because on Friday, 28 days later, from director Danny Boyle, writer Alex Garland, starring Cillian Murphy and Brendan Gleeson. That is going to be a real quick review of the week. So go ahead and watch 28 days later in preparation. But with that, that is Real Talk episode 57. And we'll see you on Thursday.